Well, hello, everybody. This is Kenny Matthews with FridayNightGlory.com, and this is our first ever state championship week podcast here. And I've got four of my beloved friends here, four of the best in the business. You won't find anybody more passionate than these guys. I'll start off with the professor to my left-hand corner in the screen over here. Mr. Diggs, how are you doing today?
I'm blessed, Kenny. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely, absolutely. Go to my far right over here and talk to my main man, Mr. Nolan Ruth, who still is in his mid-20s. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good, man. We got a Parker County school in. I was hoping we get two, but I'll take one.
And I'll go down to my far right here, my main buddy over here, the Goss, Brian Gosset. How are you doing, Mr. Hawaii?
Aloha and mahalo. Exciting, one of the most exciting weeks of the year. Looking forward to it, buddy.
Absolutely. And then, not to be last, but my main man down here, Mr. Marc Henry. How are you doing, my friend? It's always a pleasure.
Well, I came on exclusively with the horns up because I knew I would get some Sooner bashing. You know what I'm saying? I did it for a reason. You know what I'm saying? I wear a lot of hats, but this is one of the favorite ones. So, you know what I'm saying?
We got some great editors. We're going to just go on a phase that
out. Make them wear M gear.
Just a little crayon here, a little crayon there. We'll be all right.
Make your beard crimson by the end of this.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I'm really excited about this week because it's local. It's easier for us to go 4 straight days, have a good time, stay up late, hit Bobby B's on Saturday night. But anyhow, I do want to start with the 1A, especially with you, Nolan. I'll let you kind of take the lead on that. Nolan and I, we're both big 6A fans. We love it. Obviously, we got the defending champion, Benjamin, that's going to be there again with Mr. Superman of 6A that's over there now. Nolan, what are your thoughts on Benjamin, if they're going to repeat or not?
Well, you just brought up the man himself, Grayson Rigdon. I mean, as long as that guy's on the roster, Benjamin is just going to keep winning. And you look at some of their some of their scores. I mean, really all their scores, actually. I don't think they played a full 4 quarters all season. And so, and really, it's like I said, right when you began the show, and I don't know if it made it because I heard the recording in process whenever, I was making my point, but he's probably the only man in Texas high school football history who can claim that he did it himself. I mean, really, yes, he has teammates, he has touchdown passes, so he throws to people. But I mean, really, if you just gave him blockers and just had a full game where nobody on Benjamin touches that ball, and even add in Strawn from his freshman year, he probably wins that ring. Say he can't throw the ball. He has to run the ball every time. He probably has 2 rings. And so, I mean, we can say that Strawn has 1 and Benjamin has 1, but really Grayson Rigdon has 2. I mean, so as long as he is playing for Benjamin, look, and I don't know a lot about Oglesby, admittedly. I was actually saving that research for tomorrow, so I'll be more well-spoken throughout the week. But, I just don't see what Oglesby can do to stop that kid. And, I got to give credit to everyone else in Benjamin as well, because, we're going to hear a few names that by the end of the game on Wednesday, we're going to know them. We'll have heard them. They would have made a nice little impact. And so, I just don't see any way that anyone in 6-man, I'll say the country, can beat anybody. Anybody can beat Benjamin as long as Grayson Rigdon's on that team. And so, I think this one's going to end by the 3rd quarter. I don't think it ends at half. I think we play at least 2 minutes into the 3rd quarter. But, I see Benjamin mercy ruling this one.
Well, and also with him, I mean, he's got legendary status here now. That can he replace Mr. Crockett as being a legendary, best 6A guy to player, in the last 25 years? He's got a shot.
I think he already has. I mean, and that's saying something too, because remember, Ben Crockett, McLean lost that state championship game to Blum his senior year, and he still got the defensive MVP award. And the only reason he got defensive MVP is because Blum had this great player whose name we seem to forget, who got offensive MVP. So, I think he's already surpassed it. Let's go back to his freshman year when he was with Strawn and they're playing Motley County in Arlington. People forget this kid Strawn is backed up on their own 1, and this is at a point in the game where the game was still fairly close, and he goes 79 yards. I mean, by himself, literally, like the blocking actually broke down. His speed, and he made one cut and made just everybody miss. And he went 79 yards. And so I think he already has. And, you know, his freshman game alone for Strawn at the state championship game was enough to solidify that, in my opinion. And just last year, Benjamin just adds on to it. So I think he already has. I think he already has surpassed Ben Crockett as probably the best 6-man player ever in the state of Texas.
He's just a sophomore. Not bad.
He's a junior now, but yeah. As a sophomore, he was probably the best 6-man player to ever step foot on a field in the state of Texas.
I think I'm gonna write that down for this pod for next year. He says best ever now. Okay, got
it. This time next year, man, we're gonna be talking about Benjamin back in a state title, and I'm gonna tell you, he's the best man ever.
I think that's the easiest call. I think the second game is a little tougher call there between Westbrook and Gordon. I think that's a little bit more competitive there, even though Westbrook has been dominant. I mean, not as dominant as Benjamin has been, obviously, this year. That's a different, it's a different animal. But I really do think Westbrook, I mean, they actually play a little defense, so I mean, that helps in 6A where you can just get a couple stops. It's kind of like arena football in that sense, you can get up a couple possessions, then it's over. But I'm thinking that could be a lot more competitive game there, Nolan.
I agree. And talking to everybody else around me, they've been saying the same thing, that this is going to be probably one of the tougher games to call this week. And we're about to talk about it in a second, but I think the same for Toller and Timpson. I mean, I'm kind of on the fence about how I picked that game. And so, but this one for sure is definitely tough to pick. But I got a chance to see Gordon 2 weeks ago, I guess now, in their semifinal against Jonesboro, and they got stopped. They got stopped at the goal line on their opening possession, and it didn't phase them. And then Jonesboro stopped them a couple times in that game, and it really just didn't phase them. This is a team that, they know what they got to do on every single play. They go out and they do it. And, I think that their scores reflect that. This is the first team, not the first team, but it's one of the best 6-man teams defensively that we've seen in Gordon. You want to talk about Westbrook's defense? Gordon has averaged 8.6 points given up per game. That is unheard of in 6-man football. So, I mean, Gordon can play defense. I actually thought Jonesboro was going to give him a better fight, and Gordon just did not let up at all. And they got pressure, and they're really, really good at that. The other key for me is that Westbrook is missing one key piece that they didn't have the past 2 years, and that's Cedric Ware. You go back, especially that first one against May. If he's not on that field, they don't win that game. The May Tigers would have been the state champions. And instead – and where was the one on that last play? I know, Kenny, we were standing right there in that end zone when that ball gets snuck out to lose the game for May. And it goes to review, and you and I just looked at each other like, oh man, this is going to be huge. Because it was really close. But Where was the one who made the play? Where was the MVP last year? I mean, he's the whole reason they beat, I believe it was Abbott. That they did last year. They're missing that one key piece. So I know they brought a lot back. I know that they're a really, really solid team, really all-around team, but I think a lot of people are sleeping on Gordon just a little too much. I like Gordon by 6 in this one.
6. All righty.
Is this the best game of the week?
No.
That's good. I don't know if it's the best game of the week.
To me, it's the most percentile uncertainty I have. Because Westbrook has got that pedigree that they've been here, that they know how to game plan for this kind of moment. The moment won't be too big for them, but Gordon is probably athletically superior. So this is just the old school. What's going to be better? It's going to be a coaching thing. It's going to be the athletes. It's going to be the scheme. The computer polls all have Gordon because statistically it's all looking, Gordon has made it state. But how can you pick against Westbrook? So, I mean, there are so many storylines to this game that, I mean, Nolan, you may change my mind 3 times just the way you're talking about, things right now.
Hello. Froze. Are you kidding me? It froze. Are you kidding me? It froze. No.
There you are.
There you
Kenny
go.
we had the trademark Kenny smile just frozen on the screen there.
I said, what the heck?
You looked real happy, so that's
Thank
good.
you. Well, I know you guys probably wrapped it up on that part of it. I would like to go to the 2A, and I'll start off with Martin Albany, because I know that we got some Tolar connections a little bit here. Mark comes in with one of their most athletic teams, as they always do from far out. I really think that this is really another game that I'm kind of looking forward to, contrasting styles of play there. Marc Henry, what do you think about Mark?
Well, traditionally speaking, this is where they normally are, right?
Yeah.
They've been down this road before, right? It's a tradition. I think that the folks in Mark probably make this an annual trip. This is their Christmas vacation early. You know what I'm saying? And Albany, on the other hand, has been traditionally one of the better teams. I think this is probably one of the better matchups that maybe not everybody's going to be talking about.
What about you, Goss?
I mean, what a way to kick off. You got Wednesday with Westbrook and Gordon, and just day 2 you get to kick off with Albany and March. So really looking forward to it. I think right now Albany is maybe the slight favorite. So I don't get to watch too many 2A games like that, but I know both those teams are traditional powerhouses. So I'm looking forward to it.
I think Diggs brought that up. Pedigree, they both got it. So they're used to being here. So I don't think that they're, the stage is not going to be too big for them, either team, because they've been there and done that before.
They do, but Kenny, one of my famous sayings is, I look at last year and Albany beat Mark by 20 points, and I ask myself, did Mark get 20 points better, or did Albany get 20 points worse? And I don't think the answer to that for it's good for Mark, because Albany is playing at a very high level right now. It's not to say Mark's not playing at a high level, but did they get 3 touchdowns better to overcome that gap between them and Albany from last year? And I don't think they did.
Excellent point. Excellent point. And you, Nolan?
For me, this is going to come down to coaching. Kenny, I remember actually the Mark Winthorst game back in 2020. I was sitting right next to you when Winthorst scored that 2-point conversion and just shocked the world and took the trophy back to is that Wichita County? I think it is. If it's not, it's Jack County. It's one or the other. But I mean, I remember I was sitting right next to you, and I remember that year, like, there was a story going around that Mark's sub-varsity just had such a terrible year that he didn't let the rest of the team suit out. And so last year, that was their first time stepping onto AT&T Stadium and under the lights on the big stage. And so, I think that, it was the same for Albany, but Albany was bigger. I do think they were the better team last year. But Denny Faith, on the other hand, he knows what he has. And I know he went right back to work and made sure that they would be in a position to get this second one. And this also comes down, you brought up style. It's size versus speed. And I'm a big believer that size is going to win out 9 times out of 10 when that happens. So, I mean, that's where I come from with Albany. And so that's why, I'll say on the record, I'm picking Albany. Like, I think they go back to back. And right before I joined this chat, I was talking to a friend of ours, Brandon McAuliffe, and Brandon thinks that actually, if Albany wins, Denny Faith is going to go ahead and announce his retirement in the press conference. So that I don't know if that's going to happen. Brandon's not on here to defend that. I'm not sure about that, but no, I do think we're especially in these smaller classifications, those West Texas teams are big boys. They're growing up on farms. I mean, if they're not working out in the weight room at school, they're going home and working every single day. Getting bigger, getting stronger, and like I said, to me, size beats speed 9 times out of 10. I mean, and there are several examples I can go to, but obviously, being from Aledo, the key ones that come up to me are 2010 Aledo versus Lamarck, Aledo versus Fort Bend Marshall in 2018. Not so much 19 because Marshall really made that a good game, but I'm a big believer in that size beats speed 9 times out of 10, and I think that's the deciding factor here for Albany.
Excellent. Well, why don't we move to the second one? Mr. Diggs got a big smile on his face. Is Tolar. And up against, we talked about Superman earlier. There's a Superman over down there in Timpson, too. He's Clark Kent by the day, but, man, when that opening kick goes off, he's Superman. Mr. Buzzy down there. I finally get to see him on a huge stage. We've been trying to get him here to Jerry's World the last 3 years. He's finally going to be there. I cannot wait to see what this guy has to offer. But Mr. Diggs, I'm waiting for your great professional opinion on this.
I'm a little probably blacklisted in Toller right now, just because I picked them to lose last week against Stratford, and and part of that was the fact that you know I looked at their game against Marlin, and they just there was on the lines they didn't play as well as I expected them to. And at the end of the day, when I look at that Toller Stratford game, they got 5 turnovers in that game. I don't know if they win that game without those 5 turnovers. Yeah, 35-7 is a nice, convincing victory, something to feel good about. But is Timpson going to give them 5 turnovers? Is Timpson going to give them the game and make the mistakes that Stratford did? Toller caused some of that, but a lot of that was just uncharacteristic uh, wide passes. Stratford was trying to throw the ball. You find a little advantage that they thought they could see, and they miscalculated that. When you are in 2A Division One, and I know Toller's a little bit bigger, they got a little bit more depth. Usually, the best player on the field wins, and when it's that level of deficiency, I mean, the top of Timpson versus the top of Toller is a big gap. How can you pick against Bussy and that small of a sample size? I got to go Timpson as of right now.
Yeah, it's hard to practice Mr. Bussy, and
Yeah.
I mean, you can't emulate that. I mean, from size to power to strength, athleticism, you just can't emulate that. And I think that when you finally see him on the field that way, it's going to come to some reckoning for sure.
And one point, just kind of quick, because you talked about, have they seen that? Maybe not to that extent, but their game against Dallas Christian, I mean, Speedy Nettles, some of the kids over there, they got a little bit of it, and it didn't end well for Toller. So I mean, you can kind of look at that, and not necessarily take a lot of confidence coming out of that. It got them better. Toller got better losing to Dallas Christian like that, just like we're going to see with South Oak Cliff and some of the other big dogs. But again, that also kind of tells us their ceiling, and their ceiling wasn't very high when they had to play that level of speed and talent.
Another excellent point. Mark, what do you think about it?
I can't wait for this game. I've been trying to see Mr. Timpson for 4 years. It's just hadn't worked out. So I will be foot planted on the ground at 7 p.m. I can't wait. This is one of the games that I've been anticipating since we found out the schedule. He is must-see TV at the high school level, can do it all, and they let him do it all. That's the key. When you got a guy that's a playmaker like that, put him in situations to succeed, put him in situations where he's got the ball in his hand. That's going to be in your favor, and that's what they do well. Shout out to the other guys around him, though, because you have to have an offensive line when he's on offense that creates those holes and situations for him. And listen, don't forget that he can pass the football as well. We think of him as a runner and an athlete, but he's got some passing yards that back up that. So, this is must-see TV. As far as Cholo goes, I don't know a whole lot about him, but how can I pick against him? They kind of made me look bad a couple of weeks ago in the pick'em section when I picked against them and then they wiped the slate clean with them. But I'm kind of like Diggs. I can't go against that kind of phenomenal talent that we're going to see once in a blue moon with Terry Bussey. So I'm super excited about this game.
Goss?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen Timpson. Actually, the Toller game against Marlin was the first time I've ever seen them in 10 years of covering football. I don't know if Diggs is ever going to be invited back to the snake farm, but I know they love him. But yeah, I mean, against Marlin, it's just at that level, they had some great athletes. They run first, right? Garrison Nation, Peyton Brown, Isaac Blessing is a great quarterback there. Funny enough, our buddy Darren, the polar bear, was covering Stratford and Toller there in Vernon, and he mentioned I think Isaac Blessing's family had left early because I think his sister went into labor, so I think he became maybe a new uncle. But yeah, congratulations.
That's good for him. I mean, especially everything he's gone through. He needs some family. He's lost some family. Unfortunately, at a very young age. So that's nice to see that. It's getting back to the positive side of it instead of subtraction. So
But yeah, I'm definitely like on board with you guys. I'm definitely looking forward to that matchup and just see if Toller can stick with them.
Mr. Ruth.
Well, I never thought I would be cornered like this, but I'm actually going to take the Rattlers here in this game. I'm a big
I hope I'm wrong, but I mean,
yeah,
I
no,
have
of
to
course.
finish. I have to finish my story. You got your story, but I got a Gosset Pick'em story I got to finish, so I can't be.
Hey, you're talking to the guy who is known as the Parker County Godfather, and I picked against Brock last week. All right, so you want to talk about being blacklisted? I betrayed my own people here.
But you
I
were
was
right.
right. I was right.
I was
Uh,
wrong.
we'll talk about that later. But Tolar, much like Gordon, one county bordering Parker County. So Gordon and Tolar are kind of my adopted teams for the state championship week. And I've gotten the chance to see the Rattlers a couple times. They opened the season up against Peaster, who I don't think a lot of people talk about that much. They their record is, you'd look at their record and go, oh, that's it's not a good team, but they took Clyde right down to the last minute in the first round of the playoffs. A Clyde team that, had they not lost their quarterback, probably would have given Brock a better fight. They played Toller, who's now playing for state. The final score of that, Diggs, you were there, was 49-9, but it was 14-9. It was 14-6 going into the fourth quarter. So I mean, Toller's a good team, right? And so enough about Peaster. I was using them as an example. So I've gotten to see them because I was there. It was that point. But the biggest thing for me is Toller is a little too predictable, I feel sometimes. They want to get the ball into Peyton Brown's hands, and everybody knows that. The game against Marlin a couple weeks ago, Marlin shut down Peyton Brown. He broke a couple late runs, but other than that, he was silent all night, and it was Garrison Nation who was carrying the running game. So I think that Toller needs to – the key to that one is actually spreading the ball around a little bit more. I think they found out how good of a player Nation actually is when, they take Brown out of the formation and he's good on himself. But it all comes back to what I just said with Albany and Mark. To me, size beats speed. And, we can talk all day about Terry Bussey, who, by the way, I am not meaning any disrespect. This is a kid I've been, like Mark said, I've been waiting to see for a long time. I've been wanting to see this guy, and unfortunately, the Refugio Bobcats kept getting in the way. And so now we finally get him at AT&T Stadium, and I finally get to see him in person. So I'm excited for that for sure, and I think he's going to have a great game. To me, this was the toughest game to pick. Goss, you asked earlier if I thought the Gordon Westbrook game was the best game of the weekend. No, I think it's this one. I think this is the best game of the week right here. This is the one I'm looking forward to more than any other game. And it sucks that it's on Wednesday night because we have 9 more games after that to play. So this is the main event for me. And then we have 9 more games, but give me the Rattlers. I think, I know they're not getting slept on because I know everyone's on the fence about this one, but clearly in this round table, I'm the only one taking the Rattlers. So I'll stand by them.
Nolan, I admire your courage.
Me too. Well, I haven't decided just yet, but I'm going to probably be a contrarian this week and go against Diggs so I can try to move up the standings. So, but yeah, I'd like to go with the now the 3A game between Gunner. You guys froze on me.
You froze on us too.
Yeah, there it goes. There it goes.
It was a mouth wide open smile too.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, I'd like to go to now the next 3A game here between Tidehaven and Gunner. Obviously, it seems like when the schedules come out every year, Gunner has 10 scheduled games, and we might as well just start scheduling that 11th game to be a state semifinal against Canadian every year too, and just mix in the other 4 playoff games before that to be determined. But that ship is really rolling. What they have done on the scoreboard this year, to me, it's just unbelievable. They're unstoppable on their offense here. I think the championship game was played on Friday night. I think that this is. I don't even think this is close. I hope that it is because I don't like blowouts in the state championship games. It makes it harder to stand on your feet. But Mr. Diggs, what can you say about what the job of Mr. Feisel has done down there in Gunnerland?
And I love Gunner, and to be a nice guy for our pick'ems, I went ahead and gave Derek what I was thinking my picks were, so he could kind of look at upset picks, and I kind of gave a percentage, and I gave Gunner a 99%. I mean,
I did the same to Brandon, just so you know, so you're not alone.
Yeah, of all the games this weekend, I think Gunner is going to roll. And really, what Coach Faisal has done over there, kind of adopting that Coach Jackson TPW, that mentality, they have all bought into that. And
Yes.
anytime you watch Gunner, it looks like they just want to fight you. Like they'll take some personal fouls. I think they coached that up, and they said, you go get your 15-yard flag. We'll take care of that later. We might make you run some laps depending on how egregious it is, but we want to fight them. And nobody has answered the call. And I don't think Tidehaven's going to do it at all.
Well, Diggs, we got to see them play against Walnut Grove earlier, and I mean, it was close for what, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, and that's when they decided to roll and ripped off about 3 long TD runs. It's and I think you make a very good point about being bought in, and it doesn't matter which year it is. That's hard to do, to get guys to buy in, because it's a different team every year, and they're fully bought in from the last man, it seems like, to the best man. And I think I call it the most underappreciated dynasty that us media guys don't talk about, and they're in our bird. I think they need to get a little bit more props and a bit more appreciation of what they have done. Mark?
I think we give them appreciation. I mean, but at the end of the day, they're just so dominant. I mean, they're not playing competitive games for us to be like, worried about them. I mean, we can all have our opinions on some of the top 4 games, but Gunner, we're just like, they're going to roll. Yeah. Give them another title. Let's talk about it next year.
I just wish they'd play that Canadian game a little closer to the Metroplex.
I agree. That's what I was going to say.
That's the one that should be in Arlington every year. Yeah.
That should be in Choctaw or something. You know what I mean?
Shoot, no, both play at AT&T is what I say. I mean, that's the game of the year every year. So, I mean,
true.
Yeah.
Very true. I mean, and I also think it's kind of big that they were able to beat that rival in that game and then still come back a week later and win the state championship. There's not that, that significant drop off, that lull that, you think that you won it all last week. So you come in this week and you got, no, he's still winning championships, and it goes through Canadian to do it. So, I mean, it's phenomenal. And I think Diggs made a great point about the personal fouls. I mean, if you saw what Overman did when he scored this week, got up with a little trash talk. And I mean, but he's so feisty, I mean, that's the one thing, when I interviewed him earlier this year, I mean, he was still feisty in the interview, and he calmed down for 45 minutes because he hadn't played for the last hour. So, that's what I like. I love his spunk. I mean, I really do. What about you think, Goss?
I mean, I just love their defense. I mean, I know they're not playing the toughest schedules, but you still have to go out there and perform. And that 5 stretch, I think they posted a shout out 5 straight games, and in seven games only allowed 6. So, obviously I love to see numbers like that. So just very impressive. And then getting to watch them a couple of weeks ago against Comanche, that's the only time I watched them this year. But yeah, that Walker Overman kid is a stud.
Yeah. The also one I like is the Brock Brody kid. He runs hard. He's a physical running back. You don't think that he's physical by his stature, but I mean, that guy, he runs in between the tackles and he brings his pads with him. There's no question, man.
I mean, the thing about Gunner is they've been consistent. They're consistent. They're like the Patriots. You love them, love to see them win, but then they have that contingent that hates them because they're winning so much. You know what I mean? And Cannon Lindbergh's been a guy that's been up there for 4 years. That's been doing SFA commit, big time wide receiver. He always shows up in big moments, and that's the reason that I followed him so close. And then you mentioned Walker. He's a dog. Yeah. He's a dog, and I think that college coaches need to jump on that. They always look at size, and when it comes to recruiting, measurables mean something, but sometimes heart and just that dog mentality. It's something that you have to scream for a guy at the fence for college recruiters to get on that. But, I'll talk about the Baylor guy. I'm sure that Nolan's going to talk about him. And you got Joseph Dodds, big physical running back, one of the best in the country, in the state. This guy can get it done. So they're going to have to stop him. They're going to have to play some defense. The thing about Gunter is they're sound at every position. They play with great technique, and they flow to the ball. And a lot of these guys, Lindbergh and company, they go both ways. So they have to be well-conditioned athletes as well. So that's the thing that you have to watch for. But I do like Gunter and their tradition in this. They seem to be there, like some of these other teams, like Mark. They have they have residents over there at Lowe's, Live by Lowe's. They got suites over there every year. So this is a team that you're going to have to contend with, and that's what you have to do. You know what I mean?
Jerry's going to build them a locker room.
Absolutely.
This is one of those games we need Derek to take Tidehaven if he has any chance of catching Diggs.
Oh, but Nolan, what did you think about it? I mean, I know it's repetitive a little bit probably here, but I mean, it's a machine. That's really all it is. It reminds me of Alito a little bit, but we'll get to them in a minute.
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is I'm going to need Diggs and Goss to put a little bit more respect on the Brock Eagles. I know they're not playing this week, but you want to say Gunner hadn't been tested. All right. They played a semifinalist who really should be a state finalist, and we're going to get into that next, but and killed him. I mean, that's the only time I've gotten to see Gunner this year. I wish I could have been in that Canadian game. But the Brock Eagles football program is 10 years old. In those 10 years, I have never seen Brock be utterly embarrassed the way that Gunner did earlier this year. And Diggs was there. I mean, Brock shot themselves in the foot a lot as well in that game. But, I mean, Gunner just came out pure domination, made no mistakes, played the closest thing you'll get to a perfect football game against a team who was playing for the right to go to the state championship just days ago. So you're right. This is a machine. This utter dominance is what we're seeing out of Gunner over these past few years. And I agree with what everyone else has been saying. Had Canadian won that game, we'd be saying the same thing about Canadian. There's no difference. Canadian's going to go win this game. Gunner is just, and y'all have already praised Walker Overman enough. I don't think I need to do it anymore. He might, he might get a little too big ahead going into this game if we do that. But Mark, you brought up Joseph Dodds, the running back from Tidehaven. And, as much praise as I want to give him, and I will say the people at Baylor should be excited because they're building a running back room that's actually really freaking nice right now. It's like I said with Terry Bussey, with 11 man, this isn't 6-man football. One player does not make the team. And this Tidehaven team, this run for Tidehaven actually reminds me a lot of what happened with Poth last year going into this game against Gunner. They were kind of slept on all year. Some of them picked them as regional champions. Some of them thought they could make a run. They had a really good season. They pulled off, I don't even want to say they pulled off an upset because I'm questioning who actually comes out of that region that they really would have gotten really tested by. But I mean, good game in the semifinal to get here. And, they got a last one test. They got hit in the mouth a little bit. And now they're a mouse about to fight a gorilla, it's just, I hate to say this. I really do. But I mean, yeah, how can you not pick Gunner in this game? And for our sake, I hope it's not another 49-7 win like Gunner had last year. I just hope Tidehaven can score a few points. I hope they will. I will put it that I think Dodds finds the end zone at least twice, is what I'm thinking. He's that good of a player. Tidehaven will have a couple drives, but you just know this is Gunner. Who are we kidding? This is Gunner.
Yeah. What would it be, 4 and 6 years for them if they win?
Something like that,
something of that nature, 4 and 6 years, and lost the state championship game in that process, I believe.
Yeah, to Newton. Yeah.
I mean,
I remember that game.
Every time I looked up, it's Fiesel's got 15 or 16 wins.
The funny thing is, if we remember, Newton got both sides of that rivalry. They beat Gunner the first year, and then they beat Canadian the very next year. So, even though Newton, isn't what they were 5 years ago, Newton's got the laugh over those two in that rivalry. So,
well, I want to talk about the next game here. I mean, we got to see Malakoff, some of us here, on Thursday night against Brock. So they take on another machine in Franklin. And I don't throw this guys at the Do you think with Franklin losing to Lorena earlier kind of takes the edge off of them having to, talk about this undefeated streak anymore? They can just kind of go in there and play football now. Because I'm sure after every game is how many more of these you got? You won 34, you won 35, you won 30. It kind of takes pressure, I think, added pressure that you normally would have. Now you can just play free and loose. And man, Malakoff, can you get 5 more turnovers and still barely win a game? I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure. And I think Franklin's downhill running is really going to expose them because, that talking about a train, they got a couple trains over there, and they've had a train that's been there a long time, too.
I completely agree. And last year, everyone wanted to talk about Bryson Washington. Well, guess what? He's not there anymore, right? So Franklin, even with the loss to Lorena, yes, I think it was kind of a monkey off their back. The pressure's not on there to keep the streak alive. And they proved that they didn't need Bryson Washington to get back to the state championship game. So here they are. I'm going to make this one point. I'm going to pass it off to everybody else. This game should absolutely be a Brock Franklin rematch. Brock handed Malakoff that game. That game should have easily been 42-7 in favor of Brock. And I picked Malakoff. But that game, if it weren't for those 5 turnovers that they gave, 2 of which ended directly in scores, one of which was on a kickoff, like just stripped away from him. The last one, the game was tied, and I think Brody Woods should have just taken the sack instead of just trying to let the ball go. Instead, it's an interception, and Malakoff ends up in the red zone. This state championship really should be on paper Brock Franklin. Of course, this is football; doesn't work out that way. Brock turned the ball over 5 times. I think that semifinal was pretty much handed to Malakoff by Brock. Brock just made way too many mistakes, and I don't think Franklin's going to make those mistakes. Franklin's a pretty good favorite in this one, and I'm taking the Lions.
Mr. Goss.
Yeah, watching Malakoff, you got to give credit to them. Some of those turnovers or takeaways, you don't really see much, like Nolan said, on a kickoff return, and he just strips the returner and returns it for a touchdown. And they also get a scoop and 6. And then the last one, tie game, looked like Brock was going downfield and gets pressure on Woods, and then Daniel Noel, the Malakoff nose tackle, had a great game. He ended up getting the ball and running all the way to the 16, and eventually Malakoff scored the go-ahead touchdown. But yeah, I'm with Nolan on this one. It should be Brock and Franklin, but it's not. It's Malakoff. But I do agree. Franklin is too good to make those mistakes, and I'm on board with Nolan. I'm taking Franklin.
Yeah, I talked to the coach about Daniel Norell. He said he's going to be a stud, just a sophomore. He said we're going to build our defense around him. He said next 2 years. So,
as they should.
Yeah, they should. Mr. Diggs.
My compatriot said it best. It was like the Salina-Anna game. I picked Salina to beat Anna, and then walked away feeling like Anna was the better team over Salina. Same thing. I picked Malakoff over Brock. Left that thing. I don't think 42-7, Nolan. You might be drinking a little too much of the whiskey, but they should have won the game. They should have won the game. Franklin.
Why you got to do me like that, man? Come on.
Franklin is just too good, Nolan. And I think Franklin would keep. So I don't think the what woulda, coulda, shoulda was going to be very helpful for that. So.
I do want to say I agree with you on that. I do think that if this were a Brock Franklin rematch, I didn't see enough out of Brock this year to take the Eagles. So I agree with you on that for sure. But yeah, still should be Franklin Brock.
Well, let's go to 4A, man. We got those Gilmer Buckeyes going up against Belleville, and man, Gilmer. This time last week, maybe the upset in the state of Texas after they beat the defending champs Carthage. Man, no letdown for them, next the following week. At least not offensively. 72 points, I believe, that they put up against
79.
79, excuse me. That's right. I looked at my score, it was 72, and then I saw 79. I said, geez, they're going to call off the dogs here and take a knee. But yeah, I love East Texas football, so believe me, I love seeing it. Gilmer's back in here. It's going to be strange not seeing the Bulldogs of Carthagedale not being out there on that field. It's going to be a little strange for me, but I mean, the way Gilmer's putting points on the board, man, me personally, I'm picking Gilmer in this game. Mark.
I mean, how many times in the state semifinals you put up almost 80 points? That's ridiculous.
Alito's done it twice.
Alito, of course.
Yeah. We'll get to them in a second.
I had to throw it out there, man. I had to.
Mr. Henry, what are your thoughts?
Belleville's got one of the most dominant interior defensive linemen in the state. DJ Sanders, he's a guy that can get it done. He's not just a plug and play kind of guy. He's a guy that can get pressure on the quarterback. He runs from sideline to sideline. He's probably one of the top prospects on the defensive line that you're going to see that maybe people don't talk about when they start to talk about guys at the next level. Big school between, I believe, Austin and Houston, a little bit north of Houston. I'm excited to see Belleville. That's going to be a game that I'm really looking forward to. Gilmer getting by Carthage was not in the cards as far as what I was looking at. I expected to see Carthage back with all of that talent that they have. Mr. Edwards, Mr. Surratt, and those guys in East Texas have built a tradition over there. They'll be back. But I'm interested to see how Belleville handles the big lights and the pomp and circumstances of the state championship. Not a lot of guys get the chance to see that. Of course, we're privy to all that. But when you walk into Cowboy Stadium, it's an awe effect, even as, somebody that's been covering it for 8-9 years. You still get that first glance and you look up and it's like, it's an aha moment. Can they handle that? And Gilmer's going to be a team that's going to be ready for that situation. So how Belleville handles that, I think, is going to be key. D.D. Murray's a guy that's a slot back for Belleville that's lighting it up, over 1,900 yards and 36 touchdowns. So can Gilmer handle them is going to be the key, you know what I'm saying? But Gilmer's been there, done that. They're battle-tested coming out of Beast, Texas. So I think it's going to be a really intriguing matchup.
That's why we have you on here, Mark, with that great insight. I love that. The underrated defensive tackles.
No doubt.
Mr. Diggs.
Yeah, I'm actually going to disagree with a few of you, and we can get a little argumentation going on here. I appreciate the metaphor I keep giving with this is Gilmer versus Glen Rose on that side of the bracket. Like we're going March Madness. We had like an 8 versus a 10. I mean, you had like Iona Seton Hall going at it, whereas on the other side you had Duke and North Carolina going at it, or Duke and Canton, whoever you want, Oklahoma if you want, a good Oklahoma school for depending on that thing, the way that goes. And Belleville is just a very special team. For me, I think the one thing that you can look at for Gilmer's obviously got athleticism. It's been a while since Gilmer's made it to a state championship, so I don't know if it might be just as new for them as it is for them as it is for Belleville. But at the end of the day, one thing I'm looking at is that the way they beat Glen Rose, I know y'all are putting a lot of weight into that. Glen Rose was not a great team. I mean, Glen Rose got rolled by Grandview earlier in the season. You can start looking at Grandview, Malakoff, and we're talking classes lower, and start to look how that kind of goes bad. So Glen Rose exposed a pretty bad West Plains team, and we might have thought they were a little bit better. They didn't beat anybody on their route to there. So the way that Gilmer beat them, I'm not sure is indicative of a raw moment. They took care of business and they did what they needed to do. But Belleville has actually gone through the ringer, beating Wimberley. You saw Wimberley, against Brock. I mean, that was a very, very good team, and that was Belleville's best test. The question is, can Gilmer stop the slot T? Are they going to be coached enough in 1 week to stop that slot T? I don't think they're going to be able to stop them. I'm taking Belleville.
Like it.
Excellent. Well, I mean, they've, as you said, sometimes taking the tougher path toughens you up, to get there. I mean, and beating Wimberley, I mean, that's an excellent football team. I mean, so yes, they have definitely gone through they didn't sneak up on anybody. They earned their state championship berth for sure. There's no question.
I feel like that answers Mark's comment about, the Blue Bloods and whatnot. I mean, they beat the Blue Bloods. Wimberley is a team that is expected to be here and has been here, and they beat them, and they stopped them on that great, if you've seen the clip on Texan Live, that 2-point conversion. I mean, it was almost like that South Lake DeSoto spin, that he got stopped at that finish line right there.
I call that not getting 1 extra inch after contact. Is what that was, man. Nolan.
First of all, excuse me. First of all, can I just say Man, poor Glen Rose, man. You're a fumble away from beating Carthage last year to go to the state. And then, Carthage gets knocked out by Gilmer, and you're thinking, oh, great, we don't have to go through Carthage. And then you get 79 points put up on you in the semifinal. I mean, oh, poor Glen Rose. But I agree with Diggs. Glen Rose was not a good team this year. They really weren't. And actually, that was something that surprised me early in the year because I was pretty high on Glen Rose to begin the year. Obviously, they still end up as regional champions. You got to give them credit where credit is due. But that really wasn't a very good Glen Rose team. And I think that even if it was Carthage, it would have gotten rolled. Let's say it was Pleasant Grove. Let's say Pleasant Grove pulled off the Carthage upset. Sure. I think Pleasant Grove would have rolled right over Glen Rose. Key thing is I keep mentioning teams that have played Brock, and I'm about to mention another one in Wimberley. Wimberley was that team. I picked Wimberley to get to state. I did not see Belleville winning that game at all. And just the way they did it, and like Diggs said, that slot T, we call it the devil for a reason, man. It is not fun. And much like Mark said, it's right up the middle. It's right up the middle on defense and offense. They're big and physical right in that middle, right where the ball is being snapped. And that's the difference. They're getting that put up the middle. And honestly, I challenge you, if you can, I would admit if I was wrong, because I genuinely don't know, has Gilmer ever had that kind of pressure put on him before this season? I don't know if they have. I mean, other than Carthage, of course, but have they really played a team that is just going to, it's like in Mighty Ducks, the flying V, just carve right through you. Like, I don't think they have. And so I think Belleville's going to get that push out the middle. I'm with Diggs. I'm taking the Brahmas in this one.
Well, Kilgore may have given him a little bit of a game earlier.
Fair point. Fair point. I genuinely didn't know. That's why I was just saying, please. Yeah.
I mean, they might have, but yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think Diggs makes another excellent point, but trying to practice that for one thing, to get your stout team to try to practice it and then have the athleticism to try to do that and decision making to do that. I mean, it's not easy at all. I mean, it's just not. Goss, what do you think?
Well, I don't know much about these two schools other than Gilmer is a more familiar name to me than Belleville is. So I'm leaning towards Gilmer, but I'll have to do some research. But expertise-wise, we'll leave it at what the other three guys said, and let's move on.
Hey, by the way, Diggs, you said it's been a while since Gilmer's been in a state championship. Did you forget the 2020 matchup?
That's what I said. Against Carthage. I thought it was 3 years ago. Yeah.
It was only 3 years ago.
They got rolled pretty good.
They lost 2 years ago.
Granted, these current seniors were freshmen back then, but I mean, it's not like the people at Gilmer that have come up haven't been to AT&T before. I think their pedigree, but that's just adding to Gilmer. I'm still taking Belleville. Don't get me wrong. You made that point. I wanted to throw that back at you.
Diggs probably doesn't remember. Was that the COVID year?
Yeah, that was COVID year.
So that was COVID year. That was when the turf was painted for the Big 12 championship against Oklahoma and Iowa State. And that tells you how long ago it's been. Yeah.
And I feel fortunate. I think I was one of the only media members not to come down with COVID that year. So afterwards,
I didn't.
That was crazy. Crazy to think about that, man. Well, let's go to the next one here. We got Anna and Tyler Chapel Hill. And I think one of the most underappreciated players in this, if you want to call Anna a burb of the DFW, is Mr. Williams, DeAndre, the quarterback. 36 TDs, 8 interceptions. I mean, it was a great athlete last year. They had the graduation. Basically, he comes in and takes over the job there. Kind of a senior-laden team, and he's kind of been the spark plug, to say the least. He was the engine that finally got them through the threshold. And I mean, I'm just wondering why it took me so long to talk about him. That's my bad. But the last 6 or 7 weeks, I've been looking at his stats and saying, not bad for a sophomore. Again, will the bright lights be a little too big for, a 16-year-old quarterback, coming up? But I'm really looking forward to this game. And Diggs, I'm waiting. I want to hear your opinion on this one big time.
Yeah, I go back and forth. I always joke that I'm picking against Anna on Sunday, and by Thursday I'm back on the Anna train. But Chapel Hill just seems like they have a mission that they're trying to finish, and they got so much speed. I remember watching them as freshmen, a group of those freshmen against LBJ, and just playing great. Now they're all seniors. I do think Anna is they got a great coach over there. Coach Parr has done great things over there. I have nothing but good things to say about Anna and how that program has been built up and has made itself into this. But I think Chapel Hill, Coach Riordan is just too special. I think they have too many special players. I'm going to be taking Chapel Hill in this game.
Mr. Henry, I see the big grin. I can't wait.
Well, I had a chance to see Anna against Salina, which ended up going to 8 overtimes that night. And so, I didn't get back home till late in the hour, you know what I mean? But I was impressed with Williams' poise. They really took it to Salina out of the gate. The passing game, his accuracy, his ability to move off axis and make plays. He's grown up since then. I thought at the end of the game they struggled a little bit with making some plays. But I think the factor that Anna's taking this jump is because Jacob Emmers came back from injury. I went to see Emmers up close and personal. He was injured against Salina. His ability to make plays from anywhere he lines up in special teams, he's a big body guy that can come down with the contested catch. That's what beat Panther Creek in Frisco. So I think that's the key is Emmers coming back and solidifying. Steens is a guy number 2 that's a guy that can play well in space. And then on the defensive end, you got one of the big thumpers in C.J. Miller, the linebacker, who's got 182 tackles. Let me say it again, 182 tackles on the season. 182 tackles. He's a guy that college coach. Man, I'm telling you, I saw him. He flashed when I was up there against Salina. Salina's run heavy. This kid was on every tackle just about. But Ricky Stewart and Demetrius Brisbane, 2 SMU commits for Tyler Chapel Hill, is going to give him a run on that defense. These guys can get it done. And about East Texas, that pedigree, especially Tyler, Texas, they come out with some of the most talented guys that you'll see on a Texas high school football field on a Friday night. So this is probably an interesting matchup that maybe the experts aren't talking about. And because Anna's kind of the new kid on the block, Chapel Hill's historically been there several times. This is a great game. I'll be having my lazy eye on this one for sure.
I drove through Chapel Hill at the Taylor Tatum's signing day out at Longview and saw the boys out there practicing when it was 104 degrees. And I said, you know what? That's getting it done late July in Tyler on a Friday, nonetheless. It's a different dog mentality out there in East Texas, isn't it?
Absolutely.
It really is. Goss, what do you think?
Got to see Anna several weeks ago. They played All Saints. That was on our picks. I took All Saints. I have a lot of horrible picks this season. That was one of them. That's why I'm like 15th out of 18. But no, I was impressed with Anna. All Saints has their share of athletes, and Anna goes to Fort Worth on homecoming and, rolls by them. And you guys talked about them already, but yeah, Zandre Williams, a quarterback, over 3,500 yards, total offense, 45 touchdowns. But I was impressed, just like Mark kind of mentioned it, but their defense with Cash Williams and C.J. Miller, if it's not one, it's the other. So I think Anna's on a mission too, right? This is the first time going this far, and so they want to complete it. But like Mark mentioned, Chapel Hills historically has been there several times. So we'll just see again, the big lights for a young quarterback like that. The first drive is going to be really telling for him in that program.
Mr. Ruth.
This is actually kind of a sentimental one for me because I remember seeing Chapel Hill when I was only 12 years old playing Alvarado for a state championship. I was in the building that night, and that game came down to a missed 2-point conversion by Alvarado at the last minute. I love what Coach Riordan's doing over there. He's a great man. I love following him on Twitter. Every time he tweets something, I feel like I learned something new. I love him. I love what he's done at Chapel Hill. They've been so close every single year for the past few years. And just, like mentioned, they run into an Austin LBJ who just has that dream season going on. Well, I think Anna has that dream season going on, and I love what Seth Parr is doing up there in Collin County. And I got to see them a few times over the past few years. I got to see them against China Spring, the game they lost last year in the playoffs. I got to see them against Salina twice last year. you know, obviously they were hit by a graduation, the loss of their quarterback. And man, this sophomore has really stepped up and, I mean, really just taken it over. And I don't think he's really worried about the bright lights. I think he's got kind of tunnel vision whenever he takes the field because he never plays like he's starstruck or afraid of the stage. And so, you know, this was a tough one for me for sentimental reasons, just because I love both coaches. I'll go out on a limb and say I think this is the most underrated coaching matchup that we see that we're going to see this weekend. Obviously, we all know Coach Riordan at Chapel Hill. Seth Parr is making that name for himself, and I really love what he's doing at Anna. And I'll tell you this, I bet you he feels the pressure right now because they're probably not going to have this opportunity again because they're moving up to 5A, and much like Melissa, they're growing fast. This might be their last chance for a while before they see the lights of AT&T again. But I think, I think this is the dream season. I think this is what we make movies about right here is the Anna Coyotes this year. So, give me the Coyotes. I just think they're the team of destiny this year, man. I think they're unstoppable. And, I think it'll be a good game. I think it'll be a really, really good game. But, I got to take the Coyotes.
Really point that Nolan made that I kind of want to piggyback on real quick is that size disparity, because Anna is really a bigger 5A Division II playing in 4A Division I right now. So they've already got the benefit of those numbers and that depth right now. I think they're up to 1,500 kids, right now playing in a 4A Division I state championship today. So I think that's a factor that they're going to have size and depth that you might not be expecting in 4A Division I that Chapel Hill just doesn't have, because that's just kind of their size school is that legit 4A Division I.
And when you look at the grand scheme of enrollment, they're not that far below the cutoff from 582 to 581. I mean, you'd still have to scroll down a bit, but I mean, they're really not that far in the grand scheme of things. So Diggs, you're absolutely right. They're one of the larger 5A Division II schools right now playing in 4A Division I. And that depth, I think, will also come into help as well.
Absolutely. I can remember when Melissa and Anna were just kind of starting, and who would have ever thought that Anna would have got to the state championship game before Melissa? I mean, Melissa always seemed like that we're going to be the top dog. And
didn't Melissa play in a 2A state championship game not long ago?
Who was that?
Melissa? Didn't they play for state like within the past 10 years when they were still real small?
I don't think so.
Not that I can remember.
I don't think so.
I may be misremembering.
I thought
look that up while we're talking about it real quick. Let me get back to you.
I thought Gilmer was playing in 2021. So what do I know?
Well, wait. While no one looks that up,
the losers. That's the problem. You don't remember the losers. So
yeah, that's true.
They made it. They probably lost by quality or something.
What did Kenny say? You don't remember this? Who finished second place?
Second. Nobody remembers who finishes second.
Well, sometimes it will. It's the semifinalists you never remember. Sometimes you'll remember who lost, but you never remember the semifinalists.
Oh, that's great. Well, hey, let's go to the 5A. Obviously, got a lot of returning champs from the next four up now. We're going to start off with South Oak Cliff and PNG. Great, good game last year. Repeat of last year. We all know about how good SOC is. I think maybe more people maybe want to talk a little bit about PNG a little bit more here. I mean, we kind of, ad nauseum have gone over how great of a job Coach Todd has done over there at South Oak Cliff with these Golden Bears again. And I will have to be the first one to say that on my summer show at Channel 8, I was the one that said that they would not get back here because of all of the graduations on defense. So you can't graduate 10 players and expect the three-peat. Well, that crow is pretty good with a little salt and a little hot sauce. So right now, as they have gotten to the championship game. Now, I said that they're going to make a deep run. So, if they would have lost, on Thursday, on Friday, I would have said, okay, there's your deep run. But now Coach Todd said, let's go on and get to the championship game and make that crow even a little bit more. So, Mr. Ruth, go right ahead.
Real quick. This isn't about this game just yet. I got the answer pretty quick.
Yeah.
It was 12 years ago, 2011. Melissa won 28-15 over Hempstead, Class 2A Division II.
I stand corrected. Beat Hempstead nonetheless. Out there by Marc Henry's neck of the woods.
No doubt.
So 12 years ago, they won 2A. Excellent.
There you go.
Nice pull. I like that.
I'll go ahead and continue because Sock did beat Melissa to get here, so that's a good segue. I feel.
Yes, they did.
Look,
Nice.
this is
nice.
this is this is not the Sock team that we've come to know over the past 2 years. They don't have the D1 level athletes that they had in definitely in 2021. They had a few last year, but this is a team that like we see a lot of 5A D2 schools, like kind of the way Alito came onto the map, right? Alito has never had an NFL player on their roster ever. And so, it's all these guys that are just raised through the system and they're growing up through the system. And Sock is one of those teams this year. And that's why I feel really good about them because they're one of those teams. I know P&G brought a lot back from last year, but ultimately, man, I mean, look, and we're going to go into this over the next however long this takes because of the two of the next 3 games. But man, just the talent in South Dallas right now is just unmatched anywhere else in the state. I mean, this is, to me, the pressure is on Sock to win this one, and I think they got it. They've obviously been here before. Coach Todd knows exactly what he's doing. He's not afraid of this stage anymore. I think instead of 2-time Todd, we're going to be calling him 3-time Todd by Saturday afternoon.
Well, I'm gonna go to Mr. Goss before we get to Mr. Henry because I know Mr. Henry's. I know he's edging. I know he's burning over there. I know he is. So, Goss, I mean, can you say anything that hasn't been said already about the job? I mean, replace 10 starters on defense and see that defense, you had Brandon Jones coming back. So, I mean, you had a great piece in the, at linebacker, UNT, oral commit. But, I mean, still, you graduate that many Division I talented players from that roster last year. What was the number? Was it 11? Something in that range. Something in that range. Yeah. And basically now you're just, you just fit in new guys that we didn't know about, but you're still getting the same results.
I mean, I was with you, Kenny. I remember talking to Mark on my show before the season started, and I had doubts too whether how far Sock can go. And then they always, Coach Todd does a great job at scheduling.
Yes.
They play tough. It's a tough district because not much competition, so he's got to get the competition in non-district. And I mean, it's crazy, right? Duncanville, DeSoto, Dallas Parish, 5-time champs and taps. So he does a great job there just preparing because he knows he's not really going to get it throughout district. But then, even the playoff run, right, beating Melissa, Midlothian Heritage, and then sort of if the defensive questions weren't answered early on, it was probably answered against that Lovejoy game. Who thought it was going to be 42-0 against Lovejoy? But yeah, I'll say it again, and we're going to continue to say the job Coach Todd has done. Just remarkable over the last 3 years now, and so I'm all on board with Sock.
Mr. Diggs.
I'm a little mad at y'all as y'all are all chatting and giving South Oak Cliff disrespect. You know who ranked South Oak Cliff #1 in his preseason rankings? I'd be this guy right here. Dave Campbell disrespecting him. Kenny disrespecting him on the WFA thing. And what I really like about South Oak Cliff is this is the culmination of their mission, which is they don't have the best team on the field anymore. They don't necessarily have the athletes where like Alito this upcoming year where they're just going to be better than everybody they play. They are doing it as a team with belief, with coaching, because of the culture that Coach Todd and Coach Ward and those coaches over there have ingrained in that. And that's why it's so fun to watch. You watch them against Lovejoy, and you just don't see the eyeball test where they should win that game 42-0, and then they go win that game 42-0. They're doing what some of the suburban programs have traditionally done, and they'll beat you with yours, they'll beat you with theirs. The coaching over there has been absolutely phenomenal. To that end, I can't see them being 2 touchdowns worse than they were last year, or P&G being 2 touchdowns better than they were last year. The one thing that Sock does have is slow starts. If Emerson might have gotten up on them 3 scores in that game, that could have been their undoing. So if Sock has a slow start and PNG can capitalize that, I think 3 scores. Because they've come back from 2 scores several times this year, including that game against Midlothian Heritage earlier in the year. They got to get up 3 scores, and if they get up 3 scores, maybe. But if we see the Sock focus that they gave against Lovejoy, it could very well look like that.
Yeah, true. Still can't believe 14 offensive plays in the first half this past Friday night. And it's
no first downs either. No first downs either. Yeah.
It's 10-10. I mean, it's crazy. Mr. Henry, I know you're chomping. I know it. Bring it, brother.
So I've never been a Sock doubter. I've been there for all 3 championship runs. Diggs has been around as well. Actually, Diggs catches a lot of hell from everybody at Sock, but you know what I mean. I think that it's going to be one in the trenches, and I've been saying that anytime anybody asks me about Sock. You have to be privy to what they do as a coaching staff. Coach Todd, Coach Ward, Dominic Spencer, Coach Ingram, Coach Collins. The way that they coach these kids has to be talked about. This is one of the best coaching staffs in the country. You have to give them that credit. You talk about maybe not having the stars, but you got to dig a little deeper. You mentioned Brandon Jones. Phillips is a guy as well. Shelton. Those 3 linebackers, 3 of the best linebackers in the state of Texas. The offensive line is in a groove right now. I was there against Emerson. The defense put up a score. That's the difference in the game if you look at it. Mm-hmm. They waited for the offense to give time to get in a groove. The first play out of the gate, boom, Danny goes to the house with it. That set the tone for the second half. Everything the South Oak Cliff does sets tones for what they do. You have to look at that. They set the tone with their physicality, and what they're running. They're running power running game. You have to stop it. The thing that Lovejoy didn't do was match that physicality. It was 42-0. A lot of times, what's been going on, you can go all the way back to last year with the bully ball comment. Don't give these guys that fodder to get on don't give it to them. You know what I'm saying? And I know Diggs is going to probably get to this when we talk about Alito, but those guys listen to that, and they want you to think they're the underdog. But Danny Green's been a guy that I've been screaming on the fence for as a guy that, college recruiters need to take a second look at. He reminds me of a young Roger Craig. He's a hurdler on the track and field side. It's a district champ, went to regionals. He's a guy that doesn't get a lot of fanfare. Think about the last 2 years, the run that Danny Green's been on. He kind of took over in the playoffs last year and set the tone. Yeah. So this is not just something that they just made up. They preach that to these kids that they're the underdogs and that they don't get the love that they get, but they continue to win. I would never pick against South Oak Cliff. And I was at the Duncanville game. I was at the DeSoto game. Parrish. 3 state champions. All of these guys are still playing right now. That's the reason that they schedule that. You can go all the way back to when Kevin Hendry Jennings was playing. Everybody always wants to talk about why they schedule that. These guys want to measure stick early, and that tells them what they got. And so in between, when they go through district play, they're working and tightening the screws on things. This is why they're successful. Now, P&G, on the other hand, they had a tough loss to Fort Bend Marshall this year, and they're going to face the type of athleticism that they got against Fort Bend Marshall. Shea Adams played quarterback last year, has moved over to the wide receiver position. He's going to be a guy that they're going to have to really, study tape and film and make sure that they got, hands on this guy because he's a big body receiver that can get it done. But, South Oak Cliff is South Oak Cliff for a reason, and these guys have a state championship pedigree, and they're building that, and what Nolan said about the South Corridor of the Dallas area. If I'm a college recruiter, I'll have me an Airbnb there because that's where the talent is right now.
I like that. Well, I think, Mark, you made a point. I know you and I have talked about this numerous times that Coach Todd has allowed to coach his players hard because the parents allow that to happen.
Absolutely.
You can't coach that way on the suburbs. You can coach that way though in the inner city like that, and and people will allow that to happen. And he's not.
I'm sorry. Have you ever been to Alito?
Yeah.
Me?
Yeah.
No, Kenny. Yeah, you say you're not allowed to coach that way in the suburbs. Have you ever been to Alito?
That's what I was to say. I go over there all the time.
You want to know
doesn't know where Alito
is? The one thing I would say, I think that Mr. Jenkins, I do think Mr. Jenkins in the middle for them has been huge down the stretch, especially here in the playoffs. He's kind of one of those guys where it's very hard to get him off of his 2 feet. If he plants his feet, he's generally not moving backwards. He's moving forward. I do love the way they seem to have rallied, around they've rallied around that it's a team. The last couple of years, they were known for their great defense. For 2 years in a row, they were the defensive team. Just don't make any mistakes. Pump the ball. This year, it's been balanced. The offense, when the defense hadn't playing well, the offense has picked them up. When the defense, vice versa the other way. It may be his most balanced team. It's not his most talented team, that's for sure. But I mean, they've done a heck of a job, and man, here they are knocking on the door for a three-peat that I didn't predict.
Well, don't sleep on the ability of William Little to make big throws at big times. I think that's something that people don't, give him credit for. He came in and won the job as they made the playoff run last year, but he went out for a little bit. Kopecky came in. They kind of run through some things a little rough there. Still was able to win, but he stabilizes that offense. He's the guy that's the trigger to making good plays for those guys. So definitely, I think keep an eye on his performance as well. Remember, last year he was the MVP.
Well, and we talked about dogs and earlier. Mr. Ewell is a dog. I mean, they feed off of his energy when he gets a touchdown. I mean, back-to-back week celebration penalties. He told me that he had to do a little extra stuff with Coach Todd because of that. But you talk about an energy guy. You talk about a guy that's a dog. I mean, he's not the biggest guy in the world, but believe me, man, he packs a heck of a punch.
Electric.
Yes, very. It's a perfect word. Perfect word is electric. I like that one.
If there's one thing we can all agree on, though, that crowd Saturday morning is going to be insane.
Yeah. Yeah, you might need to leave about 8:30 to try to find a parking spot.
Right. You should get your tickets now.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's gonna be
I actually wonder because we'll talk about this as it goes on, but the 2 6A games are featuring for the first time ever two teams each game. They're all from the same district. So Summer Creek and North Shore in the same district, Duncanville, DeSoto are in the same district. So I'm expecting all of East Houston and all of South Dallas to show up on Saturday all day long.
Oh God, I can't wait. Well, let's talk about Smithson Valley's playing somebody. I don't know who. Do you know who they're playing? Nolan? I don't know.
Some small town that no one's ever heard of. I mean, I've only got a ring from this town, and
now he put out the ring. Okay.
I mean, I don't think anyone's heard of them. They've only won like 11 state championships. I mean, it's not that big a deal, So, I think
that was dope. I love it.
What was that, Diggs?
So where they put ring 11
on the toe. Well, they're gonna fill up the toes now, and then once they reach number 21, it's gonna be one of those septum piercings that they're gonna carry it around for the rest of their lives. They're on their nose. That's at least the rumor I've been hearing.
I would love to see Coach Buck with that.
Well, Buck ain't getting him anymore, man. He's gone. He's
at the deer lease.
He's on a deer lease right now. Yeah, he's on a deer lease right now, man. He doesn't. He's maybe shown up to 2 games this year, man. He still cares. He just.
Well,
he ain't getting.
He was there when I went to Burleson Centennial, so he's around.
Yeah.
Well, was that the game they dedicated the stadium after him?
Yeah, and they honored the 2010 team and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Well, this summer he said he was not going to be trying to hang out on the sidelines and all that. He kind of said that he thought that distance probably would have played favorably for Robbie Jones. People are always going to say that, hey, you're looking over your back, there's a legend down there, whatever. He just, from what Buck said this summer, he said, I'm just handing it over to him. He says, I'm going to do some administrative stuff during the summer for him to get him ready to be an athletic director. But he goes, after that, I'm going to be on my deer lease enjoying some cold beers.
That's exactly what's happened too. That's exactly what's happened too. Every time I've seen him, he's in the back of the end zone, right? He does not want to go near that team box. He wants this to be Robbie's program now, and so he's kept true to that. Every time I've seen him, he's always in the back of the end zone. He and doesn't talk to Robbie at halftime before the game. He waits till after the game, then he goes and talks to him. But it's been a good transition. But yeah, as far as this matchup goes, Diggsy kind of teased me. I want Diggs to go first here.
I mean, if I go first, I'm gonna be yelling at you.
Go ahead.
Because I told you, warned you an hour ago, you are going to represent Alito, and you're going to, since they don't like to engage me, they're a little scared of me. They don't like, when we start talking.
Whoa. I'm sorry. Didn't Ansel Denbo just tweet at you earlier today saying that he'll see you this time?
With me. It's what he wants. He wants a hug. Okay, that's what Ansel wants.
They win. Yeah, guess what? Because you sought him out for the picture after they won last year.
Because I promised I would. I'm a man of my word. I don't fear these kids at the end of the day. But here's what I fear.
Hey, go ahead. Sorry.
Fragile snowflakes over there in Parker County that you cannot hear criticism. We start talking about Alito on a critical basis about their turnovers this year, and all of a sudden, well, we get 600 yards and score 50 points a game. So what do we have 5 turnovers a game? And you don't like the critical analysis, and everybody wilts under that. Y'all got a friggin' tweet of me on your chalkboard over there talking about how Alito is broken because they can't keep the ball turned over there because they're such fragile snowflakes. If we're not saying, oh, Alito is the best team in the world, Alito wins every game by 56, they buckle under the pressure, Nolan. And I want to know, what about Alito makes them so sensitive to criticism?
That's a good question, man. To be honest, I'm not a big fan of how they react to you. I was going to say, I actually got a text message earlier today about a friend of mine. His son is a freshman right now, and he was just texting me, who is this Diggs person everyone's hating on right now? and I thought that was funny. I don't know what it is. I don't know if they can handle this. I see it. I definitely do see it. And you're not wrong, Diggs. They've turned the ball over. I mean, the last 2 weeks I've gone into their games with Abilene and Forney with a bad feeling. I really did. I talked myself into a bad feeling going into both of those games. And Abilene, it really almost came to fruition. Forney, those 2 turnovers were, you know what? Screw it. I'll go ahead and say it. Play calling mistakes. The Abilene ones, that was inexcusable. I mean, 14 points in the second quarter of that game. Otherwise, that game would have ended with Abilene only scoring the 7 that they got in the fourth quarter in crunch time because Abilene couldn't move the ball. So you want to look at the turnovers, yes, and you can say that Alito.
Since I called them broken, and the reason I thought they were broken is because you look at the Shoemaker game, you look at the Denton Ryan game before that, it was happening.
That's where I was going. That's where I'm going, Diggs. That's where I'm going. They absolutely turned the ball over, and they've had those really, really bad games. And it's it's easy to see. To me, it's one of those mistakes you have to clean up, and this is not something that Alito expects. And they're just as frustrated as all their fans, and I'm sure as you are, Diggs. Like they don't want to turn the ball over. They're not doing this on purpose. They're not doing it for kicks. And shoot, my AirPod. No, but the defense has the ability to also create turnovers, and the defense is ultimately what's been winning them these games. And I think that's what's going to win this game against Smithson Valley. It's not going to be Hoss Haney. It's not going to be the offense. It's going to be the defense. And you know what? I was actually thinking about it earlier today because this game against Forney, Devon Keys scored 4 touchdowns and had a couple of the biggest defensive stops and a block punt. So if that were a state championship game, we'd be talking about Devon getting both offensive and defensive MVP. And I literally was thinking about it today. That might happen. Like, it really might happen. The offense is not what's going to win Alito this game. It's the defense. And I think that the defense is going to show up. They're going to put pressure on the quarterback like they have been. They're going to be stopping the run up the middle, which ever since Lubbock Cooper, they have been. Lubbock Cooper kind of exposed them up the middle a bit, but I think they've fixed it. And with Devon right there at middle linebacker, once you reach the second level, you really ain't getting much further. And then the secondary, I think this is the best secondary Alito has ever seen. And so the passing game is going to be shut down as well. You can talk about the turnovers every time they turn over the ball and the offense not driving. That's not what is going to win Alito this game. It's the defense.
You're missing the big picture, Nolan, and I feel like a lot of people from Alito are missing the big picture. You guys are the best team this year. I'm not going to say that on paper. You got, like I said, you could probably make an argument that all 22 of the Alito starters right now could probably play some level of college ball, from JUCO to D1, some level of college ball. Every single player on the league, they almost remind me of Denton Ryan 4 or 5 years. Like, just they are the best team, and they've beaten everybody as the best team. But at some point, whether it's next year, it may be next year, it may be against DeSoto. And we see this with Coach Mathis and the Brock thing. This is becoming endemic, that they are coaching up this turnover mentality, and it's going to catch up with them at some point, Nolan. And they don't want to hear about it. They don't want to hear about, yeah, when you are 50 points better than the team you're playing, and you're only winning by 21, and you're all chest thumping because of that, you're still not meeting your expectations, and that's a disservice to the community. That's a disservice to that Alito culture that you want to see 21 championships at some point. That you are starting to basically water down the quality of Alito football because you're okay with 5 turnovers.
See, you're acting like I don't know that, like I'm not hearing.
Go home, Nolan. You don't need to be here. Let's let Mark talk.
You're freezing. Y'all are freezing on me.
Go take
Y'all
your
are
ring,
freezing on me.
shine it up real nice, and just.
You're acting like I don't see this or hear this. So believe me, I hear it.
Right, because you don't seem like you're.
I never called.
You're justifying it. You're justifying the mob mentality
game
of Alito. That's what you're doing. You're making it sound like, oh, it's okay because we're gonna win. We got number 12. Yes, you got number 12. You could have won number 12 in your sleep this year once Tatum went down. Congratulations. But at some point, you got to play to your potential ceiling. And, like, you don't have any sort of accountability for that. And you're not holding them to it either. Look at that look on your face.
Again, you were treating.
He's frozen. It's frozen. He's frozen. He's frozen.
Hold Alito accountable right now. Your Parker County brethren, Nolan. Hold him accountable.
Right, it's frozen.
He's frozen. Yeah, he keeps frozen. There he goes. Well, I guess it's safe to
challenge you, Nolan. Do it right here on this podcast
for the past few minutes. Hang on.
Hold him accountable.
He's trying, Diggs. It keeps freezing. He can't get a word in.
Yeah, if he would shut up for 2 minutes. I've been off and on frozen for the past 2 minutes. Hang on. Okay. I let you start. You said you're going to yell at me. I've let you yell at me. Let me respond. Okay. You're acting like I don't hear this. And I don't see it. I do. And that's exactly what I'm saying. It is a problem, and it's a problem that they need to fix. Right. And I'm not going to single them out, but I easily could right now on who the biggest problem is. Like, I really can. I see it. Okay. I do. But you are focusing on that and acting like, like every time you bring it up in the dump, like that's what you want to focus on.
Oh, no. He froze again. No.
The football gods realize the load of crap he is spewing out trying to spin the Parker County justification. That's the space right now, right? Like, that's the football gods saying, this is what Nolan's evidence of the Alito downfall is. We all do that right now, and we could just mimic frozen Nolan over
frozen
here.
Nolan. Goss, what can you add to Mr. Diggs?
Really? You're going to make me follow? We might as well just go to 6a. I can't follow that up. The fact that I will say, Nolan mentioned he thinks the defense is going to win. I think offense is going to put up a show. I mean, we had questions last year about sort of the offense and Huss Haney, things like that, and they go out and have, their best game against College Station. I know, some had questions about the offense against Forney. He's not on the screen now. But you lose a stud like Racing Guillory, the running back, sophomore, who won't be playing against Smithson Valley. But, man, Hawk Patrick Daniels had a day, 200 yards. Devon Keys in the short go-to-go situations. I mean, they were used to it last year. Those are two guys that did it last year. And so –
thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think, Haas is one of those guys, and he's committed to TCU for a reason, right? The big stage, big lights. I mean, he's going to go out there and he had the 2 picks against Forney. You know, he's a type of player that he doesn't have 2 bad games in a row too often. So I think he's going to get a big bounce back here against Smithson Valley. But I got a shout out to, he mentioned the secondary. You know, Jaden Allen had a pick, Arkansas commit, and then got to give a shout out to Jake Gillespie. I don't know if he is, people are talking to him about too much. He's the safety. That dude makes some big plays, and he was the defensive championship MVP last season. So yeah, that's then you have Devon Keys in the middle. That's a loaded, like Nolan said, probably one of the better defensive units Alito's had.
Well, it digs. I get to Mark here in just a second. It's nice to see Smithson Valley back. In the finals. I can remember it seemed like they were there about once every 3 years for a good stretch there for a while. But this time, I think they're taking on an animal, and I think the bear is out of the cage, and there's no way of putting the bear back in it. On this situation, I think that all that they have done, and you talked about the injuries, you talk year to year to year, what Alito does is just replace the next man up. I mean, they graduate good players every year, and it seems like there's always somebody there ready for that spot. Either they wait their time, start as a senior, they don't transfer, they bought into the program. And I mean, is this the most talented Alito team? Probably not offensively, but like y'all said before, that defense, that back end is pretty dang going good for them. I mean, defensively, they got some dogs, and I know Mr. Henry has been all over that. He's been over that well before me.
Absolutely. I get a chance to go over there in the spring and check those guys out. I think this is the best Alito team skill-wise that they've had. Back in the gap when Jonathan Gray was running those halls, it was Jonathan Gray left, Jonathan Gray right. You can go back to the Bishop guys' days. Those were the marquee names. This is a team, you know what I'm saying? And I'm glad that Gosset brought up Hawk Patrick Daniels because he was a 1,400-yard rusher last year and one of the primary runners. I love Ray Guillory, and he's one of the top backs in the state in the class of 2026. But Hawk Patrick Daniels is Old Faithful. When you go back to it and you look at it, he's been consistent wherever they line him up, in the slot, in the return game. He started out at Alito as a safety, but when they had a need for running back, they pulled him out there after they lost that first game. He's been consistent from the get-go. Devin Williams and Peyton Williams. Peyton Williams is the little Williams. Devin's the other guy who's a senior on the offensive line, is the key up front for Alito. Nobody talks about the big ugly, so I'm going to talk about them. These guys get it done. Physical presence, they will maul you. These guys have gotten it done because of that. And they went into the Forney game with a little chip on their shoulder, not just because of what Diggs was talking about, but because Forney has another great back in Javion Osborne, class of 2026. So that was the matchup that everybody was first foreseeing coming once they beat Lancaster. But Hawk Patrick Daniels over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns to get that work done. We're talking about a guy that can get it done. He was committed to UIW, but he's recently opened his commitment back up. And I think you're going to be surprised where he lands on the collegiate level. But this is the best secondary that you guys have mentioned that Alito's ever had. You got Chip Allen, you got Chris Johnson, long, great length. These guys shut things down. And let's not talk about now. Boogie Owens at the free safety is a guy that doesn't get a lot of fanfare. He's a long, athletic guy that you got to see. And then Gillespie's a great guy in the return game as well, SFA commit. So these guys have put together one of the best Alito teams, not just that they got the stars, aligned in the right way. This is a team, you know what I mean? And you're doing it, like Nolan said, without Coach Buck or Coach Wood, getting all the headlines. They quietly have been doing this thing for a long time, and this is the reason they call it Title Town. And they catch a lot of flack because they've won so much. Again, it's kind of the Patriots thing. You either like Tom Brady or you hate him, or even Peyton Manning with the Colts. You either like him or you hate him. It's because they win consistently. And they're going to win consistently because of the team concept that they have. Hoss Haney may be the star, but those guys around him have to perform for them to be successful. And then for Smithson Valley, they got a couple of guys that I've seen on the 7-on-7 circuit in Rylan Walker, who's a guy that can get it done. He can spin it. And Freddie DeBose is a track guy, but he plays receiver position, and he's going to the University of Texas. So that's a matchup, with him and Jaden Allen that you're going to see as well. And then the last guy is Jackson Maynard, 6'3", 220. He runs a 4.5. So how do they handle that pressure coming off the edge from Smithson Valley? They're here for a reason. Usually Smithson Valley is very good in the trenches. Historically, they've been a team that has been there and done that at state championships in the past. But I just think that Toledo's going to be too big and too physical up front. It's the same thing with South Oak Cliff. You know what they're coming with, you know what they're running, but can you stop it?
Stop it. Yeah. Yeah.
But the thing that differentiates now, I was trying to engage Nolan on before he got scared and decided to go run away, is what you're not seeing with South Oak Cliff is they're not making the mistakes. They're not doing the self-inflicted wounds. Yeah. And Alito, for whatever reason, maybe it's the new culture with the new coach or whatever it is, it's not pretty. They're winning because they are just like you. I feel like you mentioned their whole team, Mark, because like I said, almost every single player on their defense could go play, college football at some level because they are that good. The team concept is legit with them. They are just from 1 to 12, 1 to 22, a really, really good football team. And they are just on paper way better than all of their opponents. And, they should win this game. And the only way they wouldn't win this game is if they go out there and pull a Brock or go do 5 turnovers.
Right. Mr. Ruth.
Sorry, I had to move and I had to go mobile, unfortunately. So it happens. I think I got y'all now.
Good. Well, we basically said that we all believe Alito will win. They may even win the turnover battle. I mean, no, the other way around. Leaves the turnover battle.
You know what? Hey, you know what? That's not what's gonna. Yeah, you know what? The turnover game it might hurt them, but I think Alito has all the pieces, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. I think Alito wins this game.
Yeah, I think we all can kind of come to that conclusion. Well, let's get to DeSoto and Summer Creek. Summer Creek down there in Marc Henry's neck of the woods down there. Boy, they've had a great year. I mean, been watching them on Bally's every week with the highlights, and I kept going, they might get there, and they did. We kind of talked a little bit about DeSoto earlier. I mean, we know how good DeSoto is. We know what kind of a job Mr. Mathis has done down there. And Mr. Gosset, why don't you go ahead? I see the finger in the air.
No, I just got to say, I got to dip out. This has been fun.
Okay, go ahead.
I'd like to talk about 6A. I will say I'll take DeSoto and Duncanville.
Okay.
Yeah. And, Nolan mentioned about size over speed, but the thing with DeSoto and Duncanville, they got both. So
yeah, just a little bit.
I got to dip out. I got to dip out because
I know you got a football game coming up.
Football, go Eagles.
Go Eagles.
Hey, he put up the church finger to get out. I see you.
I love it.
All right, aloha, boys.
Guys, have a good time. I'll see you Wednesday, brother. Thank you so much for being on. Appreciate it. GM Media Sports. We'll put it on there, man. Thanks so much, man. I appreciate you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks. We'll wrap it up here real quick here. I mean, obviously with DeSoto, what Mathis has done, it's kind of just fueled a confidence level. I think, Mark, when I came on your show here earlier, we talked about trying to get over the Duncanville hurdle. So I was talking to the guys yesterday. I said, all of your goals are there at the beginning of the year. Win district, beat Duncanville, get back to the state championship game. They only have one answer left, and that is to win this coming Saturday. DJ Belly, I mean, I talked to him yesterday. Still was remarkable to me is that the kid has thrown 4 interceptions in 31 games. Yeah, 31 games. He's thrown 4 interceptions. 2 last year, 2 this year. And we saw one yesterday. We saw one of his picks yesterday. I mean, it's unbelievable to have that kind of a high octane offense and still only turn the ball over 4 times through the air. That's just, it's uncanny. I think you guys have frozen up a little bit here on me, but anyhow, it's just, that whole group is just unbelievable. The DeSoto group, you see the way they play. They have so many different weapons. They got Antonio. You can go the Terry kid. You've got DJ's brother, who is excellent. And we haven't even gotten to the Hoss, Tiger Ridden. He goes 254 yesterday against South Lake Carroll. it's fun to watch. It really is. It's fun to watch. Did y'all freeze up again, or is that Diggs?
No. I'm here, and I'm back. I'm back now. Good.
And
By
Nolan
the way,
is back.
Yeah, I'm in my setup. We got the Wi-Fi problem figured out. We're all good.
Right, we're talking.
Mark, when he was given props to Alito and well-deserved props, was really talking about the big uglies and how they were underestimated. And Kenny, we were down there yesterday. You can see DeSoto's size on paper. You can see it. It's impressive on paper. You go down there and you stand next to those men, and it's like a completely different level because 6'9" hits differently when it's right next to you. And when they start leaning on you for 60, 70 plays a game, it is tiring. And DeSoto just whoops you down. And they are just so good. And they play such a simplistic offense because they don't have to trick it up because they are so good on that offensive line, and they just lean on you. And they always talk about the whole catchphrases that the Riley Dodges in the world will give you is you put in the work in July and it'll pay off in December. It doesn't pay off when you got those kids just leaning on you just at the level that they do. DeSoto is so special because of their size. And it's not like all those other kids and all the D1 accolades and all that don't matter. But I just love that offensive line. And they whooped Duncanville. I mean, with that line. At the end of the day, Duncanville, we talk about size and the size disparity between Duncanville and North Crowley. DeSoto had that on Duncanville, and wore them down. Like Duncanville hadn't seen that. So make sure we give those big uglies their love because that's a very important part of that team.
Enormous men. Enormous men. And some of them are still adolescents. That's the scary thing. Some of them barely can drive, and they're very, very large men. Mark, we've seen DeSoto. I mean, we talked about it last year when they made their run last year. I thought that DeSoto made a concerted effort to run the football behind their offensive line during that playoff run. That made them a physical football team, and they just basically then impose their will the rest of the way. Do you kind of feel that that's kind of what DeSoto's doing again, in this playoff run?
Yeah, they're the type of people that that take your lunch money and make you like it. I mean, that's just what they do. You know what I mean? Byron Washington has exceeded all expectations. Diggs mentioned seeing somebody 6'8", 6'9". He's a large man. You know what I mean? And he's a target that's really high up in the Texas ranks. University of Texas is very high on him. You got Snacks McLean on the other side at the tackle position, who's a U of H commit. And then the thing about DJ Bailey is he's consistent. I had a chance to meet DJ when he was an 8th grader. He's consistent. You know what I mean? And his ability to make the throws at any location. And don't sleep on his running ability. I think that's a part of this game that people don't talk about a lot. He's a physical runner that gets the job done. Yeah, he's only thrown 2 interceptions in 2 years. What does that say? And the reason, I guess, when you start to look at college recruiting, you look at the measurables a lot. Stop looking at that. Go and look at the dog mentality that this kid has. And he's a winner, a proven winner. He's about to embark on his 2nd state championship in a row. That's a 2-year run that's not going to be challenged in most ranks in the high school football in the state of Texas. But on the flip side, I picked Summer Creek to beat Cibolo Steel, which I was very high on coming out of San Antonio. They were right where I thought they would be. But Summer Creek is battle-tested. Their only loss was to North Shore, who we'll get to in a minute. But they beat C. King. They beat Atascocita. They had a very, very tough road to get where they are. And that's the reason, if you look at the scores, we were looking at it at the Duncanville game yesterday. They jumped on Cibolo Steel early, but they have a very, very good defense that people may not talk about around the state. Linebacker Xavier Atkins is an LSU commit. Of course, Lord Avant is a Tulsa commit, one of the best running backs in the state, over 1,800 yards rushing. He's been doing this for a couple of years. He's been on that team for 3 years. Summer Creek may have overachieved, in so-called experts' mind. We talk about teams all over the state, but they're going to give DeSoto trouble if they come out slow. But you can always expect DeSoto with that NASCAR offense to be on top of game. And another guy for DeSoto that doesn't get a lot of love is Marvin Duffy Jr. I think when Tiger was out, he came in, he solidified that backfield. Trey Wick as well. And the freshman Booby Feaster is just scratching the surface. The 2027 class in the state of Texas is one of the best in the country. You can look it up. These guys are ready to ball. And I expect DeSoto to win this game, but I think that Summer Creek will make it tough. But if they make, they're gonna get something that they don't want, and that's gonna be a blowout.
Before I get to I wanted to make one point. Tiger said it was kind of eerie. He got hurt in the first game at Allen Stadium this year.
And to finish it up there.
Had to come back yesterday. He said it was a very eerie bus ride, returning to, the lack of a better phrase, the scene of the crime. So, vindication, I told him, you vindicated yourself pretty good with 254 on the ground yesterday. But, yeah, he said it was a little eerie. But, Nolan, I know we said a lot of the accolades, but I'd love to hear your opinion on DeSoto, what they have done, and which I think what they'll continue to do. I don't think this is the end of a run for DeSoto. I think this is just something that's going to be kind of an annual deal for them. If not getting to the state championship game, at least making deep runs in the playoffs.
I completely agree. And when I saw DeSoto come out with their enrollment number, I got a little nervous, I'm not going to lie, because that's going to be an Aledo-DeSoto semifinal, it looks like, from now on. And I got to be honest, man, the way both programs are trending, I'm not picking the Bearcats in that matchup. So, no, it's incredible what Claude Mathis has been able to do ever since he came back from Marshall. I haven't gotten to see them in person this year, but I got my buddy Will watching us off to the side here, and he's got one of my AirPods in, so he's listening to us. And we were watching yesterday's game against Carroll, and it was exactly what Matt Stepp. Here he is. It's exactly what Matt Stepp said. Carroll was going to keep it a fight, keep it a close game early, and then run out of gas right at the end. Matt Stepp is the one who said that, and then it came to play. That's exactly how it was. Well, Will can back this up, and please don't say anything. I looked at him and I said, Carroll's got to stop kicking field goals. They're getting that close. They've got to stop kicking field goals. And so that's something that Summer Creek is really, they cannot waste possessions because DeSoto's going to make them pay every single time. And I think DeSoto proved that they're probably the best team in the state after, we've just talked about it, the whooping they gave Duncanville earlier this year. I think the only way we could possibly get a better matchup is if it were North Shore and DeSoto instead of North Shore and Duncanville, right? I feel like that'd be a good one to watch. But, I will say, Summer Creek only losing to North Shore by 10, and I could see how they could make this one a game. But the key from my book is much like Carroll yesterday, they cannot waste possessions. Carroll was not going to field goal DeSoto to death, and that's why I knew from the first quarter, I'm like, this one's probably over because they couldn't finish the drives.
Diggs, Carroll gets inside the 5-yard line twice and comes away with no points there in the third quarter. They get stopped at the 1-yard line, and you get the blocked, field goal attempt after the turnover. That's a huge haul to overcome against a DeSoto. It really is, and it just zaps so much momentum because Carroll played I thought they played over themselves a little bit yesterday. Now, I think DeSoto's turnovers kept them around, don't get me wrong, but I thought that Carroll gave them about as loaded a gun shot as they could possibly do yesterday, but not getting any points in those two possessions, man, that's so hard to overcome, really is.
It is, but y'all keep talking about it, and I appreciate the whole back and forth element of it. But to me, I think DeSoto, if we're looking at it from a DeSoto perspective, which is the only perspective we should look at it now because they're the winners, it's what they did wrong in that game, and more than what South Lake Carroll did right. DeSoto has the luxury of getting to clean up a lot of things after a win that they get to be in the state championship and clean that up. Carroll can talk about the what ifs and whatnot, but I still came away from that game thinking that DeSoto was a 21 to 28 point better team than South Lake Carroll if we're playing this over a season. This was South Lake Carroll's best chance, and they still couldn't do it. They had everything go their way, and they still couldn't do it. And, you talk about the blocked field goal and the spinneroonie at the 1-yard line, and they still couldn't get it in. And they had two big runs. Let's not forget about that. How often is DeSoto going to give up those two big runs? And, they had a hard time having sustained drives down DeSoto's throat. They couldn't do it. It was big play, turnover, turnover, turnover. That's how they got a majority of their points. How that relates to Summer Creek is Summer Creek going to be able to go down the field consistently against them, and will they have any chance to stop them? To me, it's like DeSoto's going to have to self-destruct for Summer Creek to have a decent chance. And will they self-destruct 2 times in a row? I don't think so. I think it's going to be how if DeSoto plays within themselves, they're going to be able to name their score.
I think this is DeSoto's to lose, if that makes any sense.
Absolutely.
I think that's what it is. I mean, it's going to have to be quirky stuff on the field, things of that nature is the reason why Mathis won't be hoisting that trophy over his head on Saturday afternoon. It's just, they're just too Saturday night. They're just too
Saturday night. It's the finale.
Yep. I mean, it's just, I got a chance to talk to Coach Mathis yesterday. The one thing I'd like to share with you guys about him, the passion. I mean, the passion and the love that he has for his players, man. There's not maybe Coach Gibson in Pleasant Grove, maybe has a little bit of that on a different way. He's not the swag. I mean, Mathis has got the swag with it, but I mean, with Coach Gibson, you get nothing but love, and he's not two-faced at all. But I mean, it's just, and he appreciates every step of the ride. That's something that coaches I don't think, enjoy enough of. You're going through this path, you turn yourself to the next opponent. As soon as it seems like that final whistle come on, you've got to enjoy it because you just don't know how long that ride's going to be there. And Mathis is enjoying the ride, and he probably he's got a few more rides in him. He at least enjoying, the steps along the way, and I think that's huge.
I'd like to expound on that a little bit because I think one of the things that's often slept on about Claude Mathis is his humbleness. And Kenny, you're absolutely right, but humbleness is a word I would throw in there as well because you're right. The passion for his players, the fact that he never shines, at least every time I've interviewed him, he's never shined the spotlight on himself.
No.
Or, if I'm being honest, his coaching staff for that matter, he makes it all about the kids. And he's very, very good at doing that. And he loves those kids. He would do anything for those kids. But, I mean, every time I interview him, I remember last year I interviewed him after the South Oak Cliff game that was at DeSoto, and they kind of had a runaway win there. And I kind of pointed out, you realize this is your first win in the state because they played a game in Oregon and a game in Maryland like 2 weeks before, and he didn't even think about it. Like he was so busy worrying about his kids and trying to just make sure that he's doing things the right way and having fun while doing it as well, that, he didn't even think about the fact that they hadn't even played anyone from Texas yet. And so, I have a lot of respect for Claude Mathis, and I just wanted to expound on what you said, Kenny, because he's okay.
There he is.
There it goes. I'm going to let Marc Henry start off this one for the next, my fellow Houstonian. As I said at the beginning of the year, I thought that there was only one team that matched up with Duncanville. That was the beginning of the year, and they resided down in Houston. And then I was told that maybe DeSoto did, and as the season went out, DeSoto did match up with Duncanville. But this matchup to me is a humdinger. I mean, it's part 5. I mean, a testament to both teams. To get to the state championship game 5 straight years in a row is unbelievable. For those two games to play 1-score games in all 4 of those games that they played prior to, this Saturday is unbelievable. And I think the whole state of Texas was hoping this would happen, except the teams that lost yesterday. Now that it's here, Mr. Henry, I know you followed Galena Park thoroughly, the last few years. And I again, it's talent for talent. Is there an edge? I mean,
well, I mean, if I had a twin, it's like looking yourself in the mirror. They're mirror images of each other. The way they're coached is mirror images of each other. Even though John Kay left and went to Rice, Willie Gaston has come at and still been consistent at what they do. They're going to run the football and play great defense. Everything's physical up front. Same thing with Duncanville. I was at the North Crowley game yesterday. And listen, North Crowley is a good football team, upper echelon Texas high school football team. Duncanville made them look like they were an average team. And North Crowley stout in the front seven defensively. These guys, they started out, they had a couple of hiccups, but after, about the first 7 or 8 minutes, it was a Duncanville takeover. These guys are focused. I had a chance to talk to Keelan Russell and DeCorian Moore at a 7-on-7 trial the weekend before, and both of those guys told me that loss against DeSoto was the reset button. They needed to lose because they were smelling themselves a little bit. They were taking everything as if they couldn't be beaten. They were on the mountaintop. Well, that brought them back to earth, and they're a dangerous team right now. And you could say the same thing for North Shore coming off that loss last year. I saw Caleb Bailey last year, and he wanted to play last year even though he was hurt. And talking to him, he wanted to get on the field right then. His whole purpose is to get back to this game. And his mindset was to get back to this game. And they're here. They faced a tough Westlake team yesterday, and they got by them. And I think that these guys are setting themselves up for, this is round 5. This is a prize fight. The only game that wasn't close was the game when Chris Parsons started as a freshman. The other games have been close. It's been one possession games or, the Hail Mary with Demetrius Davis. This is the top part of football in the country. Forget the state of Texas. In the country that you're seeing these two teams, really these last 4 games, or these last 4 teams, including DeSoto. By far, DeSoto's the number 1 team in the state to me. But these guys are 1B and 1A right behind them. And I think that the difference is going to be the play of Caleb Bailey. Nothing against Amador last year, but you realize if they have Caleb Bailey and put Amador in his natural position, that gives them another weapon. I think they were missing
2 spots. It made them weaker
absolutely,
in 2 spots.
Absolutely,
you're weaker at the quarterback position and the wide receiver position because you had to put them at one.
And you can argue that's why they lost last year as well. That you can make that argument.
That's my point. It's like a watered down drink. It wouldn't.
Fellas, they lost.
You know what I mean?
This.
Yeah. So I think the difference is going to be quarterback play. Caleb Bailey's back. You can say on the flip side, Keelan Russell has established himself as one of the top quarterbacks in the class of 2025, SMU commit. And CD is running with a purpose. Caden Durham is really, really got it in his mind, and I can't disagree that he's not the number 1 back in the country. Everybody talks about, of course, Taylor Tatum, and I've had a chance to see Taylor up close and personal. But Caden Durham has really put an emphasis on making teams pay. He scored 5 touchdowns yesterday. You know what I'm saying? And a lot of the times he didn't play the second half this year. So he could have had a lot more yards if he's playing 4 quarters. So it's going to be the team that doesn't get the most personal fouls and doesn't make the big mistakes and the turnovers that wins this game. But I like North Shore in this game because they got something to prove. Duncanville's been there and done that, and I think that they know that they can be beaten now that they lost to DeSoto. So this is going to be a really good game. It's a toss-up, but I like Caleb Bailey coming back in to finish the job that he missed last year.
Excellent. And Mr. Diggs, why don't you give me your assessment of part 5 that's going to come up here? And before I say this, I want to tell you one thing. The atmosphere when those 2 teams play in Jerry's World is second to none when you're on that sideline. It is a buzz that doesn't go away until we get in that elevator to go up to the press box. The game is over, dude. And it stays that way because the games have been so close and there's so much intensity on that field. But yes, Mr. Diggs, how does it seem like when you're watching it on TV?
Well, I just want to say, my brain. I hope this comes out the way it is in my brain. But hearing Marc break that down, like I just want to bow to him. Like his analysis, like the way he does that. Man, I mean, I do this for a living, but the way he breaks it down and player by player and all that knowledge, man, give him like a double goal. I know he's good, but like that's next level stuff right there. I mean, I hope that comes across I'm not unimpressed with everything else you do, but just great stuff, man.
Hey,
but
if you get struck by lightning tonight for bowing to him,
hey, at least I'm wearing horns gear when I go.
But I thought to myself that I was going to consider this game based on how they played last week or the state semifinal game. I think that was the most important factor in that. And you can look at the two state semifinal games and kind of know where I'm going with this. Duncanville, even against DeSoto, it's hard for me to analyze this or really conceptualize it because I don't want to disrespect or take away anything from DeSoto because I feel like they've got that chip on their shoulder. Like they don't want to hear what would happen in a rematch. And I feel like Duncanville turned it on to that next level and gave us everything they were capable of against North Crowley. And if we get that version of Duncanville against North Shore, it's hard to pick against them at the end of the day. And I appreciate everything that Marc Henry said about Coach Gaston over there, and I get that. But you have a new coach; it's still different. No matter what you say about the consistency with Coach K and being part of that program, it's still his. It's still the first time he's had to do it all by himself, and I think that matters. And not only, and something we haven't talked about, I actually talked about it on the Houston podcast. Duncanville, this is their backyard. There is a home field advantage, and there is something to the preparation of that they're going to have to take a long bus ride. They're going to have to deal with that, and it's all the first timers. Duncanville's just going to be coming over. They're going to sleep in their own beds. They're going to, it's not going to be a long day for them. All of those are intangibles that speak to Duncanville on this. You can talk about the players and the matchups and all that. It's going to be SEC football, and it's going to be great football. But I think when you factor in those intangibles, Duncanville's got to be a 14-point favorite for me.
Oh, what team, huh? Mr. Nolan.
Yeah, I actually agree with Diggs, but I want to say that Mark made a bunch of good points as well. But I've got the DFW sweep, man. Like last year, I got Aledo, Sock, Duncanville, DeSoto, man. I got to do it. They both make good points. One thing I want to point out, though, is that Mark kind of mentioned about Samples and Duncanville having been there, done that. I mean, that is not something that I'm fearing for Duncanville because Coach Samples has been waiting a long time to have the title of defending state champion attached to him. Because, I mean, you look at his record, he turned the Dallas Lincoln Tigers into something that they really shouldn't have been in the early 2000s and beat Aledo on the way to it, I should add. But, I mean, he gets that overtime field goal blocked by Kilgore and taken back for a touchdown to lose. He loses on a Hail Mary at his first time back. A number of Skyline teams that really could have run the table if they didn't run into South Lake Carroll.
And Kyler Murray.
And Kyler Murray. Yeah, and Kyler Murray. Like it's the same, like it's just the same thing. Reginald Samples had this pattern over and over and over and over again. And he finally broke that pattern. And complacency with him is not something I'm worried about. I am not worried about him being complacent. I think Duncanville is going to come in charge. I think the loss to DeSoto angers them. I think that they know that if DeSoto somehow loses to Summer Creek, which I think we all agree is, not likely to happen. But if it happens, like they want to beat North Shore so they can say, hey, that game against DeSoto was a fluke. I think they're mad. I think they want to come in and prove on the biggest stage, because when DeSoto beat them, that made statewide news. Everyone from El Paso to Texarkana heard about that. That was the deal. I think they'll come in and prove that the best team in the state of Texas, and I think that they can. And by the way, is it just me, or does it feel like Caden Durham's been in high school forever?
Well, he was actually injured the first time they played.
Yeah, he's injured.
Sophomore. But the run that he's been on has been historic. But
of course,
I've had a chance to see him up close and personal for the last 2 years, and I always thought he was one of the better backs in the country, not just the state of Texas. But you talk about the DFW area. Saturday, you're going to see 3, in my opinion, Hall of Fame coaches. Coach Todd,
absolutely.
Coach Samples has already, written his ticket as a Hall of Famer. And then you got Coach Mathis. This isn't his first rodeo. All those DeSoto teams, he went to Marshall and had success. He comes back to DeSoto and reestablishes that regime. This is what you want to see in high school football.
There's another one.
Absolutely.
Coach Feisel.
Absolutely.
All right. We passed him already.
I'm not going to forget them. I'm not going to forget
them. We talked about the game already. Let's focus on the game ahead. No, coming back to it, though, I think I got to take Duncanville here. I mean, ultimately, it just comes down to, I mean, like Diggs said, this is their backyard. It's going to come down to those small intangibles. But the biggest thing for me is, sometimes I feel like I know I feel like I was so spoiled by that first meeting, the way it ended on my 20th birthday, by the way, and I'm 3 feet from the Hail Mary catch. Just I felt so spoiled by that first meeting that really none of them have felt the same for me. However, when I go back and watch them, I'm like, this was a better game than I remember. Like, this is always a good game, and this is going to come down to, I think, like Mark said, the only one that didn't was the one where it was more about who wasn't playing than who was playing, because Chris Parsons was starting at quarterback, not Jaquinna Jackson. That was the infamous day that John Case sent Zach Evans home on the bus before the game even started. So, I mean, aside from that one game where it was more about who wasn't playing, every single game in this series has been insane. I mean, it's a lot like this past year's ALCS. Mark, I had to bring that up.
No doubt.
Like
Okay.
every single game, every single game has been one to watch and one to really, really just hold on to on the edge of your seat. I expect nothing different, but again, Mark, you gave a great, by breaking down everybody again. I got to give you credit for that, just the way you broke down every player. But I got to agree with Diggs. It's going to be those small intangibles that just, it's afternoon game. Duncanville's going to wake up, eat breakfast at home. They're going to drive up to the school at about 10 o'clock, get on the bus, get to the stadium by about 1, and then start getting ready. Like, it's just a normal day for them, right? It's a normal day of just heading to the school, going to practice, or going to, just going across the Metroplex to play, name whoever, South Lake Carroll, Allen, whoever you want to. It's a normal game day for them. North Shore's the one making the long trip. They're the ones not sleeping in their own beds. And I usually am not one to believe that matters. But in this in this series with Duncanville North Shore, and now that Duncanville has gotten over that North Shore hump, I think that plays a lot more into it, because Duncanville now knows that they can beat North Shore thanks to last year. And I think that that's ultimately what this comes down to. So give me the Panthers in this one.
Remember,
and I don't know if you saw this, Mark, on the I saw it on the dub or on the message board there. Like the little clip of Reginald Samples after the regional championship talking about how he was, like offended by North Crowley, like, just the noise that was coming out of there. And it was such a like assassin stare in his eyes. It's like, we're going to take care of it. And they all believe, like we know.
Right.
And it's like they're at this focused level now that, maybe the DeSoto woke them up, that assassin stare. And again, I don't keep up with Houston at the same level, so maybe that's happening there as well. But I'm not seeing the results, from that, like you would see with Westlake and Cy-Fair and the teams they're playing. It's all a little bit disjointed there. Whereas last couple of weeks, Westfield, destruction, North Crowley, an absolute destruction. That's why I'm feeling like Duncanville is just at a different focus level. But could North Shore absolutely come out and bring us that because they hear this and they get that chip on their shoulder? They got the talent. I mean, that is something you're not going to doubt, that that they will have the talent to compete with Duncanville and to succeed against Duncanville.
I want to add on to Mark's point from earlier, just because I mean, you brought up North Crowley and how angry it made Duncanville to hear all that noise. They can hate it all they want. North Crowley was a really, really solid team this year. And if Duncanville were to have gotten upset by anybody in the playoffs at any point, we'd be talking about the North Crowley Panthers taking on the North Shore Mustangs right now. I mean, all it took was one upset, and we'd be talking about North Crowley right now. I genuinely believe that. I've watched Ray Gates turn North Crowley into what he's turned North Crowley into. I sat down actually last night with Carlos Lynn at Crowley High, and I said, you're doing the same thing that Gates is doing. Like, it's incredible to see what's going on in Crowley right now. So that's really part of why I'm picking Duncanville, is because I truly believe that North Crowley is a lot better than what they're getting credit for. And the fact that Duncanville went out and did that yesterday, that puts them over the hump for me as well.
Listen, Gates is 26-2 in 2 years. You have to give him that credit. Yeah. Football is back, and it's starting with Crowley. This hasn't been a relevant thing outside of Alito, that you can count as South Lake Carroll. That's been a mystique. Crowley's got something special with Lynn and Gates going over there. You can't. It'd be a lot of coaches around the state of Texas that could ask for and pray for a 26-2 record. in 2 years. You gotta give the hats off to North Crawford. On the flip side, you mentioned North Shore. You got to realize these guys take everybody's best shot. Then they beat Summer Creek. C. King's been after them. So, they're used to traveling on the road. They're used to taking everybody's best shot. And they've been at the top of the high school football mountain, and they got knocked down. So don't be surprised if these guys come out. And you guys have been there. They come out in black shirts. They mean business.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah.
There's a tradition and a pedigree that you can't just walk over there. They call them East Side High for a reason. You know what I'm saying? They got the same pedigree and their blue blood of high school football, just like the Alitos, Duncanvilles, DeSoto now, and South Oak Cliff establishing in that dynasty. And one thing before we get off, let's stop calling South Oak Cliff an inner city school and just call them a school that's got tradition. I know where they're located, but calling them inner cities, they're doing a job that any high school, whether it's in the rural areas or the inner city, would love to be on the stage that they're on now.
And I think the one thing that North Shore's got to do here, they got to get hats on that defensive line. They got to get their hats on, because I think that's the advantage that Duncanville's got going with January Ford and Simmons in that line. I think you're going to have to really, really, really contain that, and that's a lot easier said than done, and actually going out there on the field and doing it. I mean, if you're able to neutralize them, they got an excellent shot at winning the game. But if one of those guys goes off, I don't think that they'll be able to win.
Well, that speaks to that defense that they have. Listen, North Crowley's got some of the best athletes in the class of 2025 in Cornelius Warren and the TCU commit and Chris Jefferson Jr.
Yeah.
Those guys are playmakers. Ashton Searle rushed for over 1,300 yards in Warren's absence. So that tells you that they are dominant from start to finish. You have to play those guys 4 quarters in order to beat them. And like I said, they told me physically when I talked to them last week that they got a chip on their shoulder. They hit the reset button. And Diggs, I did see what Coach Samp was saying after the game. They took that personally. And teams like that don't need anything else to get them hyped. They're driven for a reason. If you ever been to an off-season workout at Duncanville, it's blood, sweat, and tears, just like Alito. An off-season program, blood, sweat, and tears. North Shore, blood, sweat, and tears. DeSoto. The weights are clanging. The music is pumping for a reason at these schools, and that's the reason that they're finalists right now.
Absolutely.
Can I say one thing to end us? It's kind of a lighthearted, kind of funny story. So when Snapshot Day came around at the end of October, and I'd heard rumblings about what number DeSoto was going to turn in, I kind of looked at my grandfather, who's since before I was born, has never missed an Alito game. Football, baseball, softball, anything. Basketball, he's been to a few. He's not a big basketball guy. But anyway, he's diehard Alito Bearcat fan. I kind of looked over to him. I said, I don't really know what I'm more afraid of. I don't know if I'm more afraid of a semifinal matchup with DeSoto, or if I'm afraid of being put in the same district if we move up to 6A with Crowley and North Crowley, because that'll.
I've heard him say it. He was hoping that Alito got to be in the same district. He's not. He wants all the smoke. You know what I'm saying? He's building that program to take on the Duncanvilles. But as you guys know, it's levels to it. And every time you get up a second level, it's no different than when you play Mario or, these guys play Call of Duty or something like that now. It's levels to it. That's the reason they rank you. You know what I mean? And that's the big thing. We can sit here and debate all day, but that's the reason they play the game, like Ermel was saying. It's everything in the playoffs is about matchups. This is the matchup that we want to see. And, some people keep saying, oh, well, I'm tired of Duncanville North Shore. Get your popcorn ready. I want to see it every year.
Exactly.
I'm with you.
I'm not tired of that. You can rerun that baby for me every December, and I'm good with it. Yes, I am. Well, guys, man, I just want to thank you guys so much for being on here, man. It was fun talking shop with you guys, man. Like I said, I have nothing but respect for each and every one of you. You guys do a great job. I love seeing you on the sidelines. I love seeing you at the games. I love just talking, and you guys are close friends of mine, and I appreciate your knowledge, and I really do appreciate you giving me a few hours here. I didn't
took
think we
longer
could
than I
go this
thought it would,
long.
man. Yeah, this went way longer than I thought it would.
Man, I can't wait to see you guys in a couple days, man. Like Mark said, man, bring your popcorn. Let's enjoy. Mr. Diggs, I'll see you on Wednesday. I'll see you on Wednesday for sure, Mr. Nolan. And yes, go ahead, sir.
I just want to plug something because you said you give us a chance. I didn't
Yes,
get to the
absolutely.
beginning.
Yes, absolutely.
I am in the planning stages of relaunching one podcast and then launching another. One I will do solo is all Parker County all the time. And I don't just mean football. I'm going to do basketball, baseball, softball, soccer, everything you throw up my way. The other one, I'm not in a position to tease what it's about yet, but just be watching. If you follow me on social, yeah, you'll see it. Just be ready.
Excellent.
Whatever
Excellent.
it might be in your future, hopefully it will be discussing the first ever Plano East State Championship. We are very excited about that.
You know what? When that happens, Diggs, you come on, and buddy Will wants to give you all a thumbs up on the way out too.
I can see it coming in volleyball in a couple of years, right, Diggs?
Yeah. I mean,
man, first Pesh anything, man, I'm going to have you on right away, all right?
it's no guarantee because you still got to go through Duncanville and North Crowley and some of those really good basketball programs. But Plano East basketball's cooking this year. I know you're about to transition, Kenny, back into
Mr. Tran can shoot it a little bit. He can shoot it a little bit. He can shoot.
Didn't the baseball team have a pretty solid season last year? No. Oh, I'm thinking of West, aren't I?
Plano West. I don't even know if they were
last year.
Yeah,
I don't do what.
Hebron was good in that district.
The district don't.
Yeah, Mr. Henry, who you want to plug? Let people know how we can get in touch with you and listen to you because I know you got a litany of them. So,
well, listen, man, the On Your Mark shows on the Fishbowl Radio Network every Wednesday from 11 to 12. Won the best new show of the year on the Fishbowl Radio Network as well. Also, 2 podcasts on the Lone Star Gridiron Network, the Top Texas Prospect Show, of course, my guy Matt Davis, and then the Third Coast Gridiron is all about Houston high school football as well. Those are two during the season. Then, I also travel with the 7-on-7 circuit, DR Sports, and I'm the lead scout on the platform at dr.com. Just recently connected with Horn Sports. Shout out to Aaron Carrera. They brought me on here. So, that's the reason you see the horns in the background. So I cover Texas recruiting analysts there. Also, Prep Red Zone Texas, Prep Red Zone, scout and writer for them as well. So, I got my hand in a lot of cookie jars. It's just what I come up with. You know what I mean? So, I'm busy year round with 7-on-7 to camps to everything. You know what I'm saying? So, just tap in. You can follow me on Twitter at MarkHen44. TXTP Show on Instagram and Twitter as well. So, I'm always busy. You know what I mean? It's not hard to find me on the sideline or a camp somewhere. I enjoy the conversation. Diggs, it's been one of the best in the game for a long time. We go all the way back. I don't know if he remembers, we were at the Old Coast together for a little while. So, it's been a thing. Anytime Friday Night Glory calls, I'm going to answer because that's where I got my start. You know what I'm saying? So y'all are family to me. Shout out to Randy as well. And if you look at all the guys that started with Friday Night Glory, it's a pattern there. So, most of those guys have gone on to bigger and better things with Nick Harris working for the Dallas Cowboys as well. Greg Hammer was there as well. So, Friday Night Glory has been a launching pad for a lot of guys. So, anytime you guys call, I'm always answering, you know what I mean? So, and then, I've kind of been around Nolan from in the infant stages when he stopped playing at Alito, to see him shining and, he got the Baylor gig. I told him congratulations on that as well. So, it's a family affair. So, anytime you call me, man, I'm going to answer.
Man, I sure appreciate it, man. It's like I said, I call you a close friend, I mean, all the other accolades go with it. It's nice and all that, but your family. Mr.
Absolutely.
Diggs, anything you want to plug, Mr. Inside High School Sports Special?
go hit at Professor Diggs, and you can see everything from Twitter. And that's where I run my mouth the most, So you can always find it at Twitter or on Alito chalkboards. You never know.
At Real Nolan Ruth is my Twitter, by the way. I forgot to say that. At Real Nolan Ruth is my Twitter. That's where you can find me. I'm not going to comment on what he just said because I'm not on Alito chat board. So it's not me.
Major respect for Mr. Diggs and his podcast. The one thing I love about Mr. Diggs, he doesn't give a damn what people think. That's
No.
the thing about it.
No, he
He's
does
got
not.
thick skin, man.
That's what makes
what,
that's what makes him special.
Okay,
that's what
I will
makes you
say
good
this.
because you tell it exactly how you feel and you don't worry about the retribution. Hey,
I will say this. Everyone in Toledo always asks me, what's up with this guy? Who is this guy? Diggs, I love you. All right. I love you, man. I'm never going to speak ill of you to anyone who, they see your opinions, whatever. I just tell them, dude, you're not going to win that battle. Just don't engage. Just don't respond. You're not going to win. I learned that very early on when I started covering high school football. I'm not going to win this fight. Just leave it alone.
Mr.
You
Diggs,
got to do your homework and more to come and
yes.
get with Diggs.
Oh, yeah. You got to do your homework. You got to get a good night's sleep, eat your brain food breakfast right there. And even then, you're still not even going to come close to what he's going to throw at you.
Absolutely.
So, as I told you a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Diggs, I missed the old coaches forum back in the day. Boy, let me tell you, only place you can get high school information, man, around here was your website when you and Step were there. And I mean, it was a godsend for me, man. It gave me just a little knowledge. It seemed like I had a little bit more knowledge than the person that was sitting next to me in those games. So, mucho props, man. Thanks so much, man. Yep. Well, thanks, guys, man. I appreciate it, man. I'll see you guys in a couple days, man. We're out on the first Texas High School pod here. Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.